Chapter 67. I'm going to kill you, Sith. True ignored her co-pilot. Moxalia could do nothing. The conditioning that he had been exposed to back on Sanctuary Base made it impossible for him to do her any harm. It had taken almost 2 months to complete that conditioning, but it had been worth it. No one had realized that he and his partner had been captured and altered, and dear Mox had provided all the excuses she needed to keep the story going. He had to do so, or be on the floor writhing in mind-numbing pain. No, he was part of the system, and the system always won. Darth Acina had made sure of that years ago. The Bothan could snarl or growl all he wanted. In the end, he was nothing. He was a puppet, a tool used to sell her deception, and in her eyes, one of the greatest deceptions in Sith military history. The story she had concocted, the actions she had performed, they had resulted in one of the Empire's deadliest and most annoying enemies acquiring her the means she needed to destroy both them and the Republic. If such actions were not a stroke of genius, she didn't know what one was. She leaned back in the pilot's chair, the smell and the way it conformed to her body bringing with it a strange sense of déjà vu. She sighed. It was strange, she had never flown this type of vessel, but sitting in this chair, moving her hands over the controls. She frowned. It felt like home. She caught her reflection in the viewport, the healthy glow of her skin, her plain dark eyes. She could have achieved such a state with another glamour, but Holly had felt it wiser not to tax her abilities. Lenses sitting on her eyes hid the yellow glow of them, and a sheet of masking skin, created for use by Imperial intelligence, hid the lovely bone-white pallor that marked her as a member of the Sith Order. And no one was the wiser, she thought with a smirk. I stood before Colonel Capistan, Shireveal, and even Finn, and no one had realized, no one had had a clue. She almost squealed with delight. They had put the fate of the galaxy in the hands of a corpse. True Halcyon had died almost 2 years ago. She had been murdered, her soul shattered and burned away like so much waste in an incinerator. She had failed the Jedi Order, abandoning it for the life of smuggler, remaining on the fringe of who she could be. She had been nothing but failed potential that the Sith had realized in her death. True Halcyon, that annoying little smuggler, had died, but before she did, she made a glorious sacrifice. She had given her body to one who truly needed and deserved it. She was now, and had been for some time, the shell of the galaxy's next Empress. She had been, and was forevermore, Darth Avaryss. And Avaris was very pleased with how well the shell functioned. A beeping at her belt drew her attention, the comm tuned to the private frequency she used to communicate with Commander Holly. She pulled it and put it to her lips. Yes. It has begun, my lord. She blinked. That was not Holly's voice. You have become Finn already? She asked. Yes. Is he okay? A bit dazed, but he will recover. I'm moving on to Phase 2. The survivors will know soon enough what is going on. Avaris nodded. A bit faster than I expected, but not completely unplanned. Are the others ready? Yes, my lord. All have been given the boosters you suggested. Any suppression drugs should be burned out of their systems by now. All your acolytes should be ready to engage the survivors. Good, Avi replied. Make sure that they understand the need for restraint. Isolate and secure, keep the survivors pinned down and confused. I still want to give them a chance to join us. Inform Rain and Zen that reinforcements are on their way. Avaris hit a button on the True Heart's command console, sending the all-clear signal to General Glask. If the man was as punctual and competent as he said he believed. The Heart's proximity warning pinged loudly. Avaris smiled. It was time. Here they come. There was shift of the space before them, the pseudo-motion of a ship exiting hyperspace. 2 Terminus-class destroyers popped into real space. At the flank of the lead vessel was a modified gauge transport craft. Built from a Terminus frame, the gauge was one of the most adaptable ships in the Sith Navy. This one, the Deception, had been modified to serve as House Avaris' personal fighter carrier. Even now she could sense the minds of her pilots, readying their Supremacy-class starfighters, and Extinction-class bombers for battle. Not that this would be much of a battle. Survivors had no planetary shield, ion cannon, or fighter support. No, this attack would not be a battle. The destroyer across from the Deception was the Deathstroke, a ship she had encountered before. Once it had been assigned to the Flawless Defense Fleet, but had since gone independent since the Dark Council had sacrificed her on that icy world. Now, its captain and crew served her. She could sense the grim determination from its crew, but again, they need not have worried. There was no battle to be had here, not with her Sith loyal having boots on the ground, literally within the walls of Survivor Base. No, the fight would not be a battle. It would be a culling, and she would claim the best of the survivors for her own. The True Heart's comm board buzzed. She switched it on with the force. Yes. Unidentified ship. A familiar crisp military voice called out, "This is Captain Kennedy of the Sith destroyer Empress's Spear. Please respond." Avaris smiled. Empress's Spear. She knew the vessel, though when it had first come into her service, it had been called Fear's Spear. She couldn't deny it. She approved of the name change. "Captain Kennedy, this is Darth Avaryss in command of the True Heart. I'm requesting landing clearance and a berth." She sent her old clearance codes, the ones created for a Dark Council member, one that Kennedy and her other loyal officers would respond to. When the captain responded again, his voice was warmer, more friendly. "Welcome home, Highness. Your loyal have missed your presence." She smiled, glancing over at the angry snarl on her Bothan co-pilot's face. "Acknowledged, Captain," she answered. "It is good to be coming home." The True Heart touched down nimbly on the deck of the Empress Spear. Avaris rushed through the checklist, eager to get down on the deck, and from there, aboard a transport back to the planet's surface. Everything was happening so quickly now. Surely, the survivors had detected the 3 Sith vessels in high orbit. Not that they could do much about it, she realized. By now Taya, Rain, and the rest were making things interesting for the survivors. No time to plan or organize. Her allies, her former allies, were at her mercy. She was eager to go back down and make sure they realized that. Once her keys were secured, of course. Yes, the keys. She grinned. Their security was her main concern. She peeled off the skin covering, revealing her true Sith looks. Her yellow eyes blazed with excitement, eager to spill blood. She swallowed hard, again feeling a tightness in her gut. If only her stomach would stop giving her trouble, today would be a perfect day. She still hoped for a peaceful resolution to this matter. The survivors were brave and fierce warriors. She needed such people, her empire needed such people. She still hoped that they would see reason. The future belonged to her. She still wished for them to have a life in it. She glanced over at Mox, motioned for him to follow. He could do nothing else, not with the programming they had subjected him to. She could have killed him after they took the True Heart years ago, when they prepped True to be her new host body. She was kind of glad she had not. The Bothan remained valuable. He had helped sell so many of the fictions that had brought them to this place, and besides, she was not known for breaking her toys, not if they were still useful. Toys like the survivors. The survivors still had use. She emerged from the ship to find General Glask and Captain Kennedy waiting. At their side, acting as honor guard, stood a full company of her Nell elites, clad in the red armor of Imperial Royal Guards. Her Royal Guards. General Glask stepped forward, offering her a slight bow. A former crony of her master, the general had switched sides shortly before her slaying her master. His blonde hair and cold features similar to those of a young Grand Moff Vacan, the legendary Imperial hero, a similarity that the general had leaned on during his career. If only he had a tenth of the Grand Moff's vision and skill. "My lord," he said, "welcome aboard the Empress Spear." She nodded in response. "General," she said, "Captain." Kennedy had been loyal to her for years, an overly cautious officer. With a hook nose and 30 years of experience, he had never received the promotions that were his due. The Dark Lord aimed to change that. "Master Avaris," Kennedy said, saluting, "your elites stand ready." Excellent, she said, inspecting her troops. Most excellent. Her eyes found KT, E01, her guard captain, and the Nell elite that led the attack on House Fear stood at attention behind Captain Kennedy, her helmet off, her eyes haunted. The oldest of the elites, this one was her most prized and necessary for the conquest of Sanctuary Base, a conquest that would begin as soon as they dealt with the survivors for good or ill. Though old by human standards, her reddish-brown hair having gone gray in the service of her former mistress. KT, E01 was still a capable fighter, her green eyes bright and intelligent, and best of all, she was known to the survivors. Avaris smiled. She was most eager for her former allies to see her toy. It was yet another blade to cut them with, and slash away at their hope. It would be torture for some, she thought with a shudder. Delicious. Mox, still at Avaris' side, eyes widened at the sight of her. Val, he gasped, Chief Valentine. KT, E01, once known as Char Valentine, sworn protector of the royal family of Bantoon, didn't respond. Her programming didn't allow that. Dead, she murmured, dead. Dead, dead, dead. Avaris turned to Kennedy. Is this unit malfunctioning? She inquired. Mox reared on her. What have you done to her? Avaris ignored him. Captain, she repeated. Kennedy shook his head. She has been like this for a few days now, my lord. Since she returned from Cross, Dr. Vran examined her and determined it was no problem. She will still obey. Avaris' eyes widened. The four screamed a warning. Rog. She dove out of the way as the sound of an igniting lightsaber filled the landing bay. She turned, looking up in disbelief. Moxalia, her Bothan pet, had drawn his lightsaber. The crimson blade flared as his violet eyes turned to purple fire. She had armed him just in case something went wrong at Survivor Base, if they had figured out that they were being tricked, and realized that she was really Avaris before the keys were loaded. The Dark Lord pursed her lips. Perhaps that had been a mistake. The Bothan whirled his weapon and lunged. He could not attack his owner, his programming prevented that, but that didn't mean he could not hurt her. He attacked her soldiers, her officers. She drew her own weapon. It was not her lightsaber, and felt uncomfortable in her hand, a weapon designed for use by a marauder, mass-produced but viable. The Nell troopers rushed to defend their master. Two were cut down, despite their enhanced speed. Mox's anger had made him faster, too fast. The Dark Lord could sense the dark side wrapping itself around the smuggler, making him resistant to his conditioning despite the intense pain he was in. That pain was part of the programming, to make sure that he wouldn't resist. Instead, he was using it to feed the dark side, give him the strength he needed. She was impressed. The Bothan stepped forward, his blade flashed viciously. Kennedy had drawn his sidearm, tried to shoot the maddened creature, only to lose his arm as the Bothan cleaved it off at the shoulder. The captain fell, clutching the blackened stump. He rolled on the ground shrieking in shock and agony. General Glask stumbled and fell, tripping over his own feet as he tried to draw his pistol. He was unable to reach it, and he now scuttled back in fear as the Bothan advanced. His lips peeled back in a feral snarl. Avaris sent a blast of force lightning at former Jedi. He caught it with his blade, showing skill that she didn't realize that he possessed. He turned to Avaris, the murderer of his partner and friend, a woman that now knew her face. Face me, coward, he shouted, murderer. Release me from my programming and fight me? Face me if you have the guts. Avaris smirked. Impressive. The Bothan had touched the dark side during his Padawan days. Zen had told her as much. All those poor younglings had, the poor troubled Padawan pack. After their escape, Mox and True had chosen to run away rather than face that darkness. Being forced into the role of her pawn these many months had finally broken down that barrier, transforming that fear into anger and hate. Moxalia should not have been able to harm her forces, but he had. Again, most impressive. Avaris cackled. Nell Trooper Valentine, she called out to KT, E01. Engage. The guard captain obeyed. She drew and fired her twin blaster pistols. Mox chopped them in two as the trooper backpedaled. She fired a barrage of toxic darts from her wrist gauntlet. The Bothan pushed them away, but before he could deal with her guard captain, he hesitated, as Avaris expected him to. She knew some of his history. He and True had sought out Jaz Darbin, and had spent some time with him and his family. He would have met the security chief, spoken with her before. Having to fight someone he had known, if not a friend, then a close acquaintance, likely someone he had known for years, made him slow. His mistake. "Miss Valentine," he shouted, "it is me. It is Mox Divernalia. You know me." He risked a glance at Avaris. "Fight the witch's control. She murdered your queen's husband. She murdered Jas Darbin." The Dark Lord sneered. "A lie, but a smart one. It wouldn't matter. Fight Miss Valentine. Fight her." "Nell Trooper," Avaris cried out. "Defend your mistress. Your Baroness. Kill the traitor. Comply." "Dead," the old woman hissed, drawing two wickedly curved knives from her belt. "For the Baroness," she growled as she lunged forward, moving with all the speed her genetic enhancements allowed. "Dead, dead, dead, dead." Avaris smiled as she watched the duel, lightsaber versus curved knives. The blades were a cortosis weave. The Bothan would not be able to destroy them with his blade, and he was distracted. He believed the old woman still a friend. Avaris almost laughed. Oh, the beautiful symmetry. It had taken years, but Darth Acina's agents had slowly infiltrated the world that their fallen master had chosen to be the seat of his power. Agents that had been turned over to her by Adaz, her former teacher and recruiter into the cause of his late master. She had expanded on the plan, arranging alliances with several noble houses that wished to advance beyond what they could under the rule of Jaz Darbin's aging wife. They hadn't known she was a Sith, of course, just an ambitious outsider. Their greed had done the rest, allowed Avaris agents to take root, a beautiful parasite hiding throughout the corridors of power, ready to move and transform the world at a moment's notice. That moment was rapidly approaching. Those nobles and the agents knew her by a different name. To them, Darth Avaryss was known as Baroness Kyra Hudlow, their patron, and in many cases, their financial backer. She had carefully built those relationships during her exile on Embria. The self-imposed exile had proven very useful. She had communed with business creatures and bankers, security officers, and military advisors. All for the single purpose, the corruption of a world, and the enslavement of his people, without them knowing they were about to become a part of the Sith Empire. Her Sith Empire. The twisting of the Queen's Guardian into one of her loyal troopers was the final piece of the puzzle. A piece that had been formed decades ago. Hikidas had corrupted the protectors of the Queen's world years ago through his own actions and the actions of many proxies, and now, at last, Darth Avaryss was ready to go to her new throne world. She would rule from Sanctuary Base, from the planet of Bantoom. She would lay waste to the Zakuul, the Republic, and any Imperial faction that opposed her. From there, she would bring the galaxy to its knees. Despite her age, the Protector danced back and forth, avoiding the Bothan's attempts to disarm her. Every time she moved in, one of her blades found their mark, slashing shallow cuts on the creature's arms and legs. The fight was entertaining, but given the two fighters, it was taking far too long. Avaris intervened. "Mox, stop." Despite his resistance, he had still been programmed. He was resisting, but a direct order from his master. That was not easily defied. He paused. Barely, but barely was all that was needed for a fighter that had spent decades training to fight beings that were faster and stronger than she, beings that might even be able to draw on the Force. Mox gasped as the weapons found their mark. The first caught him in the leg, opening an artery. The second caught him across the belly, slicing through unshielded organs. That should have been enough, but while spinning away with her second blade, Nell Trooper Valentine caught the Bothan a glancing blow across the throat. Bothan blood flowed from his open neck as his lightsaber fell from his hands. Avaris approached as the old woman stood over her dying opponent, breathing heavily, her blade slick with blood. Darth Avaryss stood over him, her eyes cold, yet sad. She looked down, her head filled with memories that were not her own, echoes of true Halcyon's past life. Playing at the temple as children, their flight from the fall of that temple, and the years of smuggling missions since. A friendship and partnership that had defined both of them. She could not entirely stop the stinging in her eyes, or the lump in her throat. Moxalia didn't beg for mercy. He gasped and looked up at her, reaching out with the force, perhaps trying to find his old friend somewhere behind her eyes. He wasted his time, his final moments. Avaris sneered. There was nothing left to find. True Halcyon was dead, and now. So was her partner. Medical teams arrived at the order of General Glask, tending to the wounded Captain Kennedy. None of them approached the Bothan. Avaris ordered them away. She stayed with him, watching his life flow out, and through the Force, remained with him until he finally slipped away. She could have punished him further, used her spells to stop him becoming one with the Force, but she didn't. He had served his purpose, and now, he was going to his reward, his rest. It was a mercy of sorts. His pain was over. She smiled. The survivors that resisted her, however, their pain was just beginning. She went to the pilot's ready room to confer with the commander of her ground troops. The man in charge was a hardened old war dog named General Hawk Bangier. He informed her that he was standing by with a full complement of Sith troopers and heavy armor escorts. The Sith walkers were ready to deploy, and she gave the final order. They would surround and contain the base, shoot down any transport that tried to lift off. Any that got by, the Sith warships would handle. She also contacted the bridge, informing First Officer Pivot that he was acting captain, until Kennedy was ready to return. She told him that she was going down to the surface with the second wave. She and her Nell elites would assist the troopers with dealing with the remaining Jedi on the surface. She found she was most eager to face her old allies. Shira, Master Anno, they would be no match for her. Timon and Finn, they would finally understand the truth of what had been going on these past few months. She would remain true to her promise. The Empire would change under her rule. They could afford to be more tolerant of the light, especially considering that her first act would be to grind the Jedi Order beneath her heel, and with the keys and death knell in full operation, she would never be threatened by the forces of the light again. She called for her battle armor. She would go down to the planet not as a survivor, but as a Dark Lord of the Sith, leading her troops. At last, she would accomplish a feat the Empire had desired for years. The destruction of Survivor Squad was at hand. The thought sent a warm shiver down her spine. This has been a glorious few days. They had seen the end of Jaz Darbin, and now would see the end of his foul creation. Glask had not wished to deploy ground troops. He said that they should simply send down a flight of Extinction-class bombers to glass the base and everything around it. She had refused. She had people down there, her apprentice and executioner, not to mention her brother and her children. She would not sacrifice them needlessly. They were the future, and she would claim it. The survivors were the past, and dead. We will give quarter to the enemy. If they surrender, they may yet be of some use to us, she told the general. And if they are not, Glask inquired, if they resist? If they resist, they are doomed, she replied. Her stomach twitching uncomfortably again, she ignored it. We will wipe them out, she said with a wicked smile. All of them. They arrived to find Survivor Base in flames. The Sith armored transport touched down, deploying her 22 remaining Nell elites. Avaris, now clad in the robe and armor of a Sith master made for the main base. At her side, General Glask sneered with delight. So much for the vaunted Survivor Squad, he crowed. We might have well been shooting lake divers in a barrel, my lord. He sneered cruelly. This is a great day for the Empire. A glorious one for you, my lord. Avaris grunted in response. Despite the general's words, the attack had not been as one-sided as she had expected. Of the 12 walkers they had deployed, she saw the wreckage of 4. 2 of the remaining 8 were damaged. They would need a few hours in the repair bay before they were combat ready again. She looked around the battlefield. If she had to guess, she had lost 3 troopers for every one of the survivors. Her eyes narrowed. This was why she had hoped to play the deception out a little longer. She could not readily replace the men she lost. Technically, she was an outlaw to the Empire proper, and Death Knell was not ready yet. Soon, once the final strain of the poison was ready, she would be able to make as many troops as she needed. Soon, but not yet. Master. She looked up, spotting Rain emerging from the smoke, her hair and face marked with ash. At her side came Taya, her old friend limping slightly, and looking more than a little ill herself. Both were damaged, but still moving. Despite the wear, they both appeared intact. A reason to celebrate, to be sure. Though her face was hidden behind her mask, she smirked. It seems that the day is ours, she said. So it seems, Taya agreed, her expression troubled. Something in her old friend's voice drew the Dark Lord's attention. What? Avaris demanded. What's wrong? Rain responded before her old friend could answer. Only a third of the base's personnel engaged us, my lord. The rest retreated. The Dark Lord frowned. Retreated? Where? There is a cave system beneath the base. Its entrance was sealed up, hidden behind one of the spare power generators. Her apprentice scowled. Master Shire led the bulk of the survivors into those caverns, including Tim and his mom. The rest stayed behind, but not before collapsing the entrance behind them. Rain stepped forward. Master, Tim is down there. He fled before I had a chance to stop him, talk to him, convince him that. Avaris waved off her apprentice's worries. It matters not, my dear. We will have time to search those caverns. Now that the base is ours, we will bring down a scanning crew. They won't escape us. They? Taya gave her a pained look. Actually, we won't be able to do that, Avi. We probably have about another 2 hours before we are going to have a lot of company. She glared at her oldest friend. What do you mean? We jammed all transmissions. The survivors could not call for help. It is not aid for the survivors that is coming, Taya said, holding up a small device. It was blackened and sparking, but enough of it was left for Avaris to guess what it had been. She took it in her hand, even holding as she could feel the vibration, the signal that it was generating. Damn. A locator beacon, one of unfamiliar design, and given her work with the survivors these last few months, studying Imperial and Republic technology, she didn't recognize it as anything she had seen before. So, she could guess who it belonged to. Zakul technology? She asked. Taya nodded. It seems that way. It was on one of the transports that we used to flee Fear's base. Avaris snarled. Why didn't we detect it before? It was not active. It was designed with a rudimentary droid intelligence. Likely it was inside one of the weapons that struck the transport as we fled. It attached to the ship and crawled inside one of the damaged sections. It probably hid from the repair teams and remained dormant until it connected with a power source and access to a carrier frequency. It went live the moment the survivors tried to lift the transport, even when it was shot down. The Dark Lord didn't need her friend to finish. She could guess what this meant. As Taya had said, they had little time, an hour at most, maybe 2. They needed to make the best of it. Did we take any prisoners? Taya gestured her forward. Avaris followed. She reached out with the force, and could tell that one of the survivors was one she had hoped was still alive. She smiled behind her mask. Finn. At least, something had gone right. They arrived to find the small group of prisoners, being watched over by Abominus, Barrick, and Zen. Her brother said nothing, his eyes hidden behind his mask. Zen grinned manically, looking to explode into a rage of death and violence any second. Abominus was slick with blood, her mouth, and the front of her chest was pink with gore. The monster eyed the remaining prisoners hungrily, clearly full after her first meal. Avaris' eyes fell on the traitors, the ones who had agreed to accept her offer. After the True Heart had left the base, and the Sith warships arrived in orbit, Holly had sent a recorded message over the base intercom system, informing the survivors that she had the keys and was willing to offer the hand of friendship for any who chose to come over to her side. There were 5 of them, with 2 more laying wounded on the ground. She recognized them both. The wounded, they were technicians who had been dallying around with Zen before Barrick had returned. The others were soldiers she had fought with on both Hutta and on Fear's base. She was not surprised to find Terran among them. The 2 of them had developed a rapport. She was not ashamed to admit that she was glad to see him among the wise. He grinned at her. "Care to tell me how you did it, Master?" he said with a cold grin. Avaris smiled and removed her mask and hood, revealing her face. He didn't seem surprised. "How?" he asked. "The face you saw before was merely a glamour. I lost it when I used the Force to transfer myself into a new body, this body." She flashed him one of True Halcyon's knowing smirks. "I found this body most pleasing. Others might as well," the young man said suggestively. The Dark Lord chuckled. This was not the first time he had flirted with her. "Does Captain Cooper know you have taken his daughter's body?" he asked. "No," she replied. To be honest, she had not realized that Cooper was True Halcyon's father, though that did explain the anger directed at his second wife. Why wouldn't True have disliked her and blamed her father for what had happened? Why wouldn't the girl have sided with her birth mother? Avaris didn't know the full story. She would likely get it later, but for now, she had one last piece of business to attend to. She turned to the 3 prisoners, the only 3 remaining. "These stayed to buy the others time to escape," Taya said, looking troubled. "I'm sure you can guess why." Avaris nodded. "Yes. Heroes to the last." Colonel Chris Capiston had stayed, a captain going down with his ship. He glared angrily at Avaris. "What did you do to Halcyon?" he demanded. "Nothing she didn't deserve," Avi replied. In that moment, she thought of all the times that Mox and True had humiliated her, made her look bad in the eyes of the Dark Council and her master. Considering that, True was lucky that Avaris only destroyed her soul. She could have trapped it in a crystal for all eternity. She could have left her to suffer for all time. Instead, she had been merciful. "Lying witch," the old soldier hissed, trying to rise. Barrick struck him over the back of the head with the rifle butt. He went down hard. The older man groaned and continued to glare daggers at him. She sighed. That was one who would not be smart, she feared. She turned to second prisoner. Master Anno couldn't stand. He was caught between Bliss and Jeer. The 2 children danced around him. The Rodian tried to rise, tried and failed. Every time he did, one of the children zapped his cybernetic headgear with force lightning. Avaris almost laughed. The Rodian had the Terric virus. His organic parts could regenerate quite quickly. The non-Terrog-created cybernetics were not as durable. Speaking of cybernetics and droid parts, she could see at least 4 of the Rodian's combat droids still functional. They couldn't attack, because their master had been disabled, and now Holly had their CPUs pulled out. The engineer, still dressed as a survivor squad member, was tinkering. Avaris nodded to her old friend. Suddenly she had an idea. A little surprise for the Zackle when they arrived. She would need those droids and another small piece of technology from the Empress spear. Bliss, stop. Avaris turned. Finally, turning to the last prisoner, the one she had hoped would be standing with Terran and the others that had chosen to switch sides. Finn was on his knees, his wrists in binders. Avi approached him slowly, surprised by the feeling of betrayal she was feeling through their bond. It made no sense. She was not one to let her conscience get in the way of doing what needed to be done. Finn looked up, taking in her face, her true face as it were. She smiled. I stand before you now, my love. No glamours, no tricks, just me, all of me. She leaned in closer. Finn took a shuddering breath. She could feel his anger. True, he asked, looking away. Died almost 2 years ago, Avi answered. They had never lied to each other. I needed her body, mine was used up, and failing. He took a shuddering breath. Mox. He died bravely. He will be honored, I promise. Finn took another shuddering breath. You lied to us, to me? No, I didn't. You took the keys? Avaris sniffed, an amused look on her face. I told you, I would only take the keys if you gave them to me, and guess what? You did. Zen laughed from her place behind her master. So much for your vaunted power, Finn. You traded your friends and allies for the feel of Lord Avaris in your bed. She laughed coldly. You failed them. The Jedi, the survivors, the Republic. You failed them all. Finn glared at his old friend. Shut up, Zen. The dark Jedi cackled and walked away. It was at that moment that Abominus returned. She had taken to the sky moments before. The monster dove down and landed at her master's feet. She dropped to her knees before her. No sign of the remaining survivors, farm girl. They may still be underground. The Dark Lord nodded. Well, that was it then. She knew what she had to do. She looked at the 3 prisoners. There was only one thing left to do. She tried one last time. Colonel Capistan, Chris, we no longer have time. If you have some way to call the others back, do so. The Zakuul will be here soon, and they will level this place. With me, the others at least have a chance to survive. The old soldier lowered his head and remained silent. Avaris glared at him. What do you think will happen to Gilly if she is captured? What will happen to Roxy and Timon? She looked at the 2 men, 2 brave men, one she loved, the other she had come to respect as both an ally and an adversary. Tell them to surrender. I intend to keep my promise, change the Empire, end the war. You can't all be a part of that, my grand destiny. There is no reason to sacrifice yourselves. Chris said nothing. He glanced over at Finn and lowered his head. Finn looked down, barely able to meet the soldier's gaze. I'm sorry, Colonel. I should never have. It is not your fault, kid, he said. She fooled us all. Avaris snarled. What was this heroic nonsense? Were they mad? Were they fools? Ono made it to his feet again, only to be shocked by Jir, who laughed maniacally. The Rhodian hooted loudly, lost in pain and static. Avaris glared at the boy. Jir, enough. We were just playing, Mother, Bliss said. Yeah, Jir added, lightening up. Something in the boy's voice set her off. She wasn't sure what it was. The world turned red. Avi didn't hesitate. Her blade was in hand, and she lashed out. Bliss only just pulled her brother out of the way. There was a flash of flame, sparks, and the stink of burning meat. Master Ano, one of the finest droid smiths in the Jedi Order, crumpled to the ground, his head removed from his shoulders. N-O-O-O. Finn and Capistan tried to rise, but Abominus and Barrick were there, pushing them back down. Avaris whirled, her temper blazing. She saw red as she approached the 2 men. Finn, he was her lover. He should know better. Chris Capistan was. Avaris paused. She took a deep breath and stood before the old man, her blade mere breaths from his neck. I'm giving you one last chance, old man, she hissed. For Gilly's sake, and the rest of your men. Call them back. The colonel glared at her. Go to hell, Avi? She hissed, and started to raise her blade. Master, wait. Rain was there, stopping her before she could swing. What is it, apprentice? She hissed. Rain looked up at her hopefully. Let me talk to him. The Dark Lord could barely think, but she did nod. What the hell? What could be the harm? She stepped back. Rain approached the colonel. She gave him a sad smile. Things aren't going well for you, are they, Mr. Chris? Better for me than for you, he answered. Please don't do this, she said. Don't doom all those that fled into the tunnels because you don't like my master. The colonel glared at her. I can't trust her, and I don't think I can trust you. The old man's eyes narrowed. You were never kidnapped from Nar Shaddaa, were you? Shira told me what Cooper found on the bridge of that ship. And what is that? Rain demanded, her mouth twisting into a sneer. You did it. You poisoned those people and stabbed their son to death to cover your tracks. You were never kidnapped. I did what I had to do, the girl shrugged, and now you can do the same. Avi felt it then, Rain reaching out with the force, ensnaring the old soldier's mind, trying to bend it to her will. His eyes turned glassy as he stared up at her. Call to the others. You can still save them. You can save Timon, Dr. Tag, And Gilly, your beloved Galadriel Locke. Rain smiled. You can finally be the man your poor father wanted to be. You can have great power, and the woman you love at your side. You don't have to be alone. You can have everything. Capistan smirked and shook his head. I already have what I want. The respect of my men, the love of a good woman, and the honor and self-respect of a Republic soldier. He laughed. You will have nothing, Zay. Nothing. Timon will never be yours, and you will die alone and in darkness. You will live only to betray and be betrayed. You will be nothing, a pathetic slave of the dark side. You will be... VMM. Chris Capistan gasped. He looked down at the red glow in his chest, the red beam piercing his chest, and he looked up into the eyes of a young woman, a former slave girl. Still a slave, only now to the dark side. Reign of the Sith sneered at him. You should have kept your mouth shut, Mr. Chris. She yanked the blade from his chest, letting him fall forward, and to the ground. No. Finn shrieked and fought to get up. He struggled against his bonds, and it took both Abominus and Barrick to hold him back and down. Chris. No. Rain stood over him, a cruel smile on her face. And now you die, as your alcoholic ass of a father always knew you would. Alone, and with a life that added up to nothing. The girl sneered. Pathetic. The colonel lay on the ground, his eyes finding Finn, the pain in there fading with the light as well. Stay strong, kid, he murmured. Stay, street, ugh. The old soldier twitched, and his body fell still. Avaris looked down, her eyes cold and angry. She looked at Rain, who merely shrugged. He shouldn't have called me a slave, the girl murmured. Avaris nodded. That had been a mistake. Finn continued to fight. She could feel the dark side boiling in him, his power burning away the suppressors that one of her people had injected him with. Avaris stepped forward and cracked him across the face with the hilt of her deactivated lightsaber. Finn sunk to the ground, unconscious. She sighed. So much for the survivors, she thought angrily. Fools. Blind heroic fools. She motioned to Terran, and the others who had joined her. They executed the few remaining soldiers that chose not to join. Such was the fate of all who opposed me, she thought. Such is the way of the dark side. She turned away, heading back for the shuttle. She still had some things to arrange before they left. A certain piece of technology to bring down. A surprise for the Zakuul. Bring Finn Shadowstone, she ordered her elites. 2 formed up, one taking his legs, the other his shoulders. Rain looked at her, her expression concerned. Master, what about? Avaris stopped her with a raised hand. We will test Timon and the others, see if they are strong enough to survive. She turned back to her student, her yellow eyes blazing with dark power. We need to be going. The Zakuul will be here soon. What about this place, Avi? Taya asked. The Dark Lord smirked. She had the most diabolic of ideas. It was delicious. The survivors have one last act of defiance in them, Taya, she answered. One last act against the eternal throne. She laughed wickedly. Trust me, my friend, it will be a real blast. Chapter 68. Ruin and Death. That is all he felt in that moment, lost in shadow and pain. He saw what was to come, the future that he had helped make. The Force showed him all. It held nothing back in that moment. Why would it? Why shouldn't someone's sins be laid bare in their final moments? He looked down upon a world he had never set foot on, but knew immediately what it was. The spire, the seat of the Zakuul, Arkan's transmissions of retribution had come from this world. Images of his throne room beamed across the holonet. That throne room was broken now. Bones lined the walkway leading to the eternal throne. Below the seat of power, bones and carrion eaters were all that remained of the people of this world. Head mounted on pikes served as decorations leading to the throne. Finn Shadowstone pulled away. No. This couldn't be. No. He tried to flee, to find somewhere, anywhere to escape what had happened, what would happen. He found himself looking down upon Coruscant. Death had come to this world, as well. The sky lanes once so filled with traffic were empty, only the sound of winds echoing through the vacant towers. The center of the galaxy, its beating heart, had been stopped. The great towers now filled with corpses. The great Senate rotunda still stood, but the boxes that once housed the delegations that governed the galaxy were now yet more grim trophies, heads on pikes, warning off any who dared enter this place, to believe that this world could rise again, and serve as a counter to the dark. Finn shivered. The sight chilled his blood. No life, he realized. No hope. He moved again, this time, to Dramankos. The Sith throne was not much better than Coruscant. Some life remained, but most has been snuffed out, the estates now graveyards, the towers fallen and overgrown with vegetation. Why, he wondered. The dark side was in ascendance. Why would the home of the Sith be so ravaged? It is what they deserve. A familiar and beautiful voice echoed in his head. It is what I'll deserve. So many worlds rushed past his vision, places he knew or had at least seen. Some were as dead as Coruscant, others existed in a state of perpetual fear. Parents silenced children who dared ask why. Mentors reported to Sith advisors, men and women, that informed them what the true history of the galaxy was. No deviation was tolerated. No question. No resistance. No hope. Only once did he see a spark, a young man arguing against how things should be. It wasn't a cry to revolt, merely a question of how and why things were like this. She heard him. Through the Force, she knew. A foul mist filled the lungs of the boy's parents. The air they breathed turned to death knell toxin within their bodies. Their eyes turned yellow and cold as the Force whispered her orders, what needed to happen. In that moment, they only served her. The parents tore the child apart. They called him traitor and tore him to pieces with their bare hands, even as they shed tears for what they were doing, unable to stop it. Finn cried out, demanded that they stop, but they couldn't hear him. He was no longer real. He was simply an echo of what had been. Finally, he found himself on a beautiful tropical world, the black heart of a broken galaxy. A massive temple rose from a rocky island. A dread citadel that was a weapon, a palace, and a place of worship all rolled into one horrific nightmare. His gaze rose skyward. He found himself in a throne room, looking out at the stars. A single being sat upon the throne, an emperor with no pity or mercy. As he watched the dark days seem to roll back, he watched the ruler age in reverse, growing younger and younger until he was replaced by another. Son to father, father to grandfather, grandfather to grandmother, and so on, and so on. A dynasty of darkness, a family of evil, and it had all begun here. Finn's Sith eyes widened. It began with him. He saw himself, older and harder, his blonde hair streaked with gray, his pale skin ravaged by the dark side, his purple lips pulled back into a sneer. He stood next to the throne, and on it sat Avi. His lover sighed contently, gently touching her growing belly, their child stirring within. The latest in a long line of children. The dark Finn smiled down at his wife, an Empress. You did as you promised, Avi, he purred. The galaxy is at peace. I always keep my promises. Love, the Empress replied with an evil smirk. She reached out and stroked her lover's arm. All this is because of you, my darling, she said. All for you. Finn's past self roared. The death, the destruction, all of it. All for him. All for him. No. No. Avi. No. All you're doing, her voice echoed in his head. Your fault. Your fault. No. No. Finn sat up, his heart pounding in his ears. He looked around, finding only shadows and the cold metal of a ship's deck. The room was large and totally black. He could hear the echo of his breathing, a ship's hold, perhaps a large one. He reached out with the Force. He needed to find her. Avi. She had to stop this. She couldn't seriously believe this was the way to go. I'm here, Finn. He turned, as a single light flicked on, revealing her. Darth Avaryss smiled down at him. She sat upon a black throne, dressed in the robes and armor of a full Sith Darth. Those robes were as white as freshly falling snow, only the silver and crimson of the Sith shoulder plates marred the pale purity. Avi, she still looked down upon him with true Halcyon's eyes. True's features twisted by the effects of dark side necrosis. Her yellow eyes were red-rimmed, her pale cheeks sunken in, her lips so purple they were almost black. Finn frowned. Her true face, he realized, no pun intended. No more glamours. No more deceptions. She laughed lightly, the amusement of a skilled politician or tyrant. I saw it, she said, through our bond. I saw your vision. The galaxy, perfected. She leaned back in her chair, sighing with relief. We are going to do it, my love. We are going to change everything. Finn stumbled to his feet. He still was dressed in his survivor jumpsuit, his lightsaber still on his belt. Avi, he gasped, how can you think what you saw was perfect? Wasn't it? She asked, sounding confused. It is exactly what I promised you and the survivors. The Zakuul gone, and a galaxy without war, no longer divided by the stigma of light and dark. A galaxy in a state of total security, and perfect peace, perfect order. She shrugged. What more could you possibly want? Finn's head spun. What was this? Was she truly that mad? He shook his head. Avi, we can't. Why not? So much death. Creatures die all the time. We will simply be accelerating the process, a small price to pay for going down in history. This is insane. It is evil. Again she laughed. Evil is only a point of view, Finn. You must understand that, as we move forward. He fell to his knees, still not believing what he was hearing. How, he wondered. How could he have been so completely wrong? He had believed in her, thought he was giving her a chance to make the Empire better, to put someone he could trust in a place of power, to make the Sith Empire better, more humane. You are mad, he murmured. I'm actually feeling quite chipper right now, she answered. Her expression was that of a gentle mother, trying to make a confused child understand. If you mean to ask if I'm insane, well, sure. I went insane years ago, thanks to Darth Fear and his machinations. Her smile soured. Fear, she spat. He was simply a symptom of a greater sickness. The infection of choice and free will. How many times did the Empire suffer from the choices of the Dark Lords? Sidarbin nearly destroyed us using the concept. He played on our ambitions and nearly brought the entire Empire down. Her smile returned. I will make sure that will never happen, Finn. Our galaxy will be pure and perfect. He glared at her. He had never seen this side of her. She had always hidden it, until now. He didn't like it. It sickened him. You will lose, Avi, he said. She blinked. How? You will be stopped. By whom? Any that can, the Jedi, the remaining survivors. She giggled. The survivors? She cackled. Oh, Finn, you really need to see this. She pressed a button on her throne. A holo screen appeared before them, sent down from some projector high above. Finn blinked. He recognized what he was seeing. It was Survivor Base, seen through the image of a high-flying probe droid. He could see the great rock, the landing pads, the scorched ground from where the battle had been waged against Sith forces. Yet, he saw no wreckage, no bodies. He saw motion, the camera pulled in, a close-up revealing them to be several of Master Anno's battle droids. He saw soldiers as well, forming up around the great rock, readying for battle. He then saw the enemy, the Zakuul shuttles. 5 appeared out of nowhere, 3 troop carriers and 2 armored transports, dropping Zakuul walkers. Skytroopers launched from the bays of 2 of the ships as the 3rd touched down. Deploying a full company of Zakuul knights, they formed up in a phalanx, ready to engage the survivors. Finn glanced at Avi. Nell troopers, she informed him, dressed in survivor garb. It is necessary to sell the deception. What is about to come? What deception? He asked. What did you? The image of the base vanished in a blinding flash. Finn looked away. but turned back quickly, watching in horror as Survivor Base vanished in a mushroom cloud. The great rock, all the names of the fallen erased in seconds. Fire rolled across the plains. He could only look on in horror. By the Force, he gasped. Avi laughed. A low-grade atomic, effective if a bit dirty. She dismissed the image, drawing Finn's attention back to her. As far as the Zakuul are concerned, Survivor Squad and their allies among the Sith and Jedi are dead. If they suspected that the key still existed, they likely think them destroyed in that blast. She gave him a proud look. Darth Avaryss and the keys of Hikitas are now extinct, at least. That is how it shall be until I'm ready to strike. We will hit them from the shadows, and they will be caught completely unprepared. We shall move to end the Zakuul threat, to erase the Mongol Empire vitiate build in secret. We will strike and destroy every man, woman, and child in Zakuul space. She leaned back and sighed contentedly. We shall end the war in one swift stroke, my love. The galaxy will thank us. She watched him closely, both through the Force and with his eyes. She hated to admit it, but what she was seeing was turning her on. His rage was boiling, the hate swelling within him. She had guided him gently down the dark path, offering him physical rewards as she found his aggression and used it. He was so close now. So very close. This was a bit of a risk. She didn't deny that. The line between love and hate was a fine one, especially for one committed to the dark side. She remembered well how things had begun with Fel. Their budding love could have easily ended that first night, with one of them murdering the other. He needs to accept what he is now. He needs to let go of the limitations that he placed on himself, and those taught him by the Jedi. Through passion I gained strength. Through strength I gained power. He had found his passions. She and Taya had done everything to stoke those passions since Tatooine. He was ready. He now needed to accept that she was the only way, that no one else would have him now but her and the Sith. He had to accept what she offered him. Even if he tried to attack her in rage, that would be useful. She would easily beat him down and make him accept that she was the only thing he had left. It might seem cruel, but that was how the game was played. This was how Finn Shadowstone became a Sith. He was breathing hard, furious. How could you? He hissed. We need to disappear for a time, Finn. The survivor base, and all that remained, is destruction, was the best way to sell that disappearance. And what of the others? He demanded. Roxy. Shira. Tim. The Dark Lord shrugged. I'm not sure how deep those tunnels beneath Survivor Base went, or if they had a way to block the explosion and the radiation. I didn't sense any more death, but by that point, the land around the base was roiling in death and despair. She smirked. Besides, if you care so much about the other survivors, you would not have helped me. Finn's hands curled into fists. What does they think of all this? He demanded. She is young, she replied. She will adapt. You murder her friends, people that she cared about. You think she cared that much for them, really? She is a better actress than you realize. Was she acting with Tim? You felt how she felt for him. As I said, she is young. She will recover, if he is gone. She will hate you for this. Avaris nodded. Yes, but that was needed too. She had felt a twinge of resentment between her and her student. They masked it well, but she would not act on that. She was smart enough to know that it was not yet time, that she didn't have the power to harm her master. But it was a start, a red check in the ledger between them. There would be many more before the girl's training was complete. The desire to balance that ledger was part of Rain's training. She had to want to kill her master when the time came, just as Avaris had wanted to kill fear. It was part of the dance between master and apprentice. Unlike fear, Avaris understood it, and was not trying to use sentiment to cloud the issue. One day, she and Rain would fight, and only one would walk away, the Dark Lord of the Sith. Such was the way of the dark side. Finn needed to learn that as well. He needed to accept. We took you in when your own empire had turned against you. Yes, and I'm grateful for that, she said. The survivors were most useful pawns. That got his attention. His temper spiked anew. Pawns. She didn't speak, she merely smiled. That annoyed him even more. You were our ally. They were a necessary evil, despite the respect that grew between us, and make no mistake, I did respect them, all of them. As for allies, well, if anyone was my ally, it was you. In fact, we were more than just allies. I think you can agree with me on that. Finn took a deep breath, trying to control his temper. No, she realized that wouldn't do. She twisted the blade again. The holo screen returned. Finn looked up and saw himself in those images. A recording taken from Survivor Base, him murdering the guards and arming Avaris Sith allies. Holly? He hissed. Who else? The Dark Lord replied. These images will be distributed to my various contacts, and from there, find their way into the hands of any Republic agent, or Jedi that we can find. The destruction of Survivor Squad must be public, if it is to serve my needs. Plus, the few survivors that chose to join me will sell the tale of your defection to my cause. They will say that you aided me in my final victory, and in the destruction of Survivor Squad. She grinned triumphantly. I leave nothing to chance this time, my love. There is no backing out this time. You can't step away from your destiny, your place at my side. She leaned back, steepling her fingers before her. I won't allow it. He paled, realizing the full scope of what she had done. Some would call it betrayal. She called it teaching. Why? He gasped. Why are you doing this? To destroy your hope, she thought. Resistance, rebellion, it always began with a flicker of hope. People had to believe that their resistance could succeed. They had to believe that the dawn would come in the darkest night. Finn needed to realize that that would not come, that she was the only way. Only she would accept him now, forgive him. He would be a pariah to everything he once held dear. Jedi would hunt him. The Republic would curse him. Only at her side, and in her arms, would he find acceptance. The mere thought excited her, all the possibilities she was sensing now through the Force. She had left him no other options. She was the way. She didn't say this to him, not yet. He would still not understand, think her cruel, or crazed. She decided to move her plan forward. Why? Because I thought it a proper wedding gift. He blinked, still not fully comprehending, perhaps. Wedding. She rose from her throne and did a quick pirouette, showing off her robes. I am all in white after all, she giggled. Though I think we can agree, any chance of me being an innocent bride was lost long ago. He swallowed. In that moment, she felt none of the desire that had defined their relationship these past few months. She felt rage, hate. Again, good. He was almost there. Only a few more steps. You murder my friends, destroy someone I knew and respected, and wear her body like it is some new suit, and you think that I would. What other options have you? He took a shuddering breath. Is the thought really so repellent now? She demanded. You know what was happening with the survivors, how they were coming to feel about you. I felt it too, through our connection. They didn't trust you, after Jazz died. They were plotting against you, don't believe that they weren't. They didn't trust you. They were not willing to accept you as the heir to Jazz Darbin's authority and power. He shook his head. In this, he understood. He knew the truth. They didn't understand, Finn said. They didn't trust you, not like I do. You are pissed about how I chose to proceed, how I decided to end my relationship with the survivors. That is fair. Yet, ask yourself, were you truly committed to their goals? Didn't you think that maybe, just maybe, my way was better, cleaner? You considered just giving me the keys. I know that, because I felt you wrestling with that decision. As for ending them group, well, I didn't want their deaths, Finn. I was not lying about that. I respected the survivors. They saved my life, more than once, but they were unwilling to stand with me. I offered them the chance, and they chose betrayal and death. That was on them. They should be aboard this destroyer right now, preparing to use the resources that I have to continue our little guerrilla war against Zakul. Avi sat back down on the throne. They chose death over me. They chose. Her expression turned cold. Now you must choose. The power and prestige to save the galaxy, or a life of loneliness and fear, hunted by both sides. She gave him a hopeful look, reached out with one pale hand. "Choose wisely, my love, my Finn." "Take it," she thought. "Please, take it. Don't leave me alone, too." "Please," she almost begged. "Please?" He watched her, his eyes betraying nothing. He still couldn't believe it. She truly was insane. "Not much of a proposal," he said dryly. She pulled her hand away. He could sense hurt, anger that he was pulling back. "We live in strange times, my love." He almost sneered at that. Love. Did she truly understand what that word meant? How did she think he would react? How did she think he would look at her when he saw her wearing True's face? Avi sniffed, likely picking up what he was feeling through their bond. "I have cooled our passions, have I?" Not surprising, marriage is more than simply lust and desire. There is a political side, too, a most valuable side. She stood proudly, looking down upon him, not as his lover, but as a Sith Lord. "You fear what I'm going to do? Then stay with me, and check my power. Stay my hand if you can. You fear I lack compassion for the rabble. Then be my conscience, be there to remind me of the worth of those under us." Her expression turned softer. "And I offer something else, as well. A chance to have more than any Jedi, a chance to be part of something." "An empire?" he asked. "A dynasty?" "A family," she clarified. "I offer that more than anything else. I want you at my side, Finn. We belong together. We have been a part of each other since we were children. My first real memories are of you and our bond. I can't offer you so much. The galaxy will be mine, but I will be yours, and if that is not enough to tempt you, think of the young ones. Bliss is already so fond of you, sees you as a father figure. You could be that father. You could guide her down a gentler path. Jeer, well, I fear he may already have a head full of bad wiring. You could help with that. A father's love with a firm hand. You could guide him, teach him to be more than what he is now. You could give my dynasty a chance to be more than any Sith house. Your will could influence emperors and empresses for the next 1,000 years. Our blood and knowledge bound together. We will make the future our own, a brave new galaxy." She held out her hand again. "You can still stop me. You can still save me." She smiled shyly. "Come with me, please." Finn took a deep breath and closed his eyes. He could hear it so clearly now, the dark side of the Force. The light side, it had fallen silent. It offered so much, it offered what Avi offered. He could be the conscience of the Empire, and if he didn't like what she was doing, he could always kill and replace her when the time came. He could guide the Empire, make it over any way he wanted. None would oppose him, none. He took another shuddering breath. He wanted that, he realized to his shame. He wanted that so very much, and it could all start here. All he needed to do was take Avi's hand. He would fall and become a Sith. Perhaps one of the greatest Sith in the galaxy. He would play her game and bide his time. He would give her children, and they would be together, and he would watch, and he would wait. One day, revenge would be his. He would pay her back for all the harm she caused. As she slew Darth Fear, he would slay her and take the Empire in a new direction. His hands curled into fists. Now, he understood. This was the trap that destroyed his dream friend, that destroyed Kira Lilas. She had believed that the dark side was the path to justice for her family, and a chance to save her world. It had lied to her, as it was lying to him, twisting what he wanted to serve the needs of the dark side. He would become an agent of evil. It was the same darkness that called to him in the lower levels of Coruscant. It had stayed with him long after, even after Master Jazz had taught him to resist his rage, to look at it, and move beyond it. He could take her hand, and become what she wished him to become, or he could do something else, something unexpected. The right thing. Avi's expression changed slightly. Perhaps she picked up on what he was thinking. "Don't be foolish," she warned. She sat down again on her throne and pressed a series of buttons. More lights clicked on behind him. He turned and stifled a gasp. No. They had been laid in state, inside refrigerated containers, 7 of them in all. He shook his head. It was horrible. The bodies of those that refused to turn. He saw Chris Capiston, his face cold and blue from the chemicals. He saw Master Anno, his tongue lolling from his head, a head kept separate from his body, just in case. He turned to Avaris, an unspoken demand on his face. She shrugged. I told you. I respected them, and I respect you. I thought you might want to see them laid to rest as proper. I had no desire to pile and burn them like so much trash. She looked down at the arm of her throne. There was a book there, Finn recognized from his time among the survivors. It was Chris Capiston's drawing book. The place where he kept the names and faces of all the survivors, the one outlet for the artist he had dreamed of being before his father had forced him to choose the life of a soldier, a life that had always disappointed the old man, a life he could never succeed in because of his weaknesses, and in his resentment struck out at his son, forced Chris down a warrior's path. Avaris flipped idly through the book. The colonel was quite talented, she said. She looked up at him and smiled. There are even drawings of you and I in here. He truly accepted us. He did not understand what we truly were. She laughed lightly. Quite a few of Gillian here, some going back years, some quite, oh my, these are most intimate drawings. She turned the page upside down. I wouldn't have thought the human body could bend that way. The Major was more flexible in her youth than I, that is for certain. He didn't answer. He didn't like Avi having that book, making so light of it. It was personal. It was how the colonel expressed himself. All that remained of his innocence and hope. Now, it was all that was left him, besides his deeds. Gilly wasn't it more than anyone else, why not? They had been so close to being one once. Finn wasn't surprised. Chris had loved Gilly. He had even reached out to her again recently. Finn knew. The Major had told him. They had spoken about getting back together, perhaps, even trying married life, once the Zackle threat had ended. That would not happen now. Avi had stolen that chance. She had stolen it when she watched Zay murder Chris. Now she mocked him and all those that he had known and cared for. The flames in his heart burned hotter. Avi looked up at him, seemingly unbothered by his growing anger. He was really quite good, she repeated, and he should be thanking me. Everyone knows a true artist is only appreciated for their talent after they're dead. Of course, his family might want these back. That is counterproductive, I think. I shall send assassins for them, his siblings and mother if she still is living. We wouldn't want them messing up his legacy. I think he would be proud of that. Finn had heard enough. She wasn't joking, she would do it. Kill Chris' family to feed her twisted sense of respect. Finn knew what he had to do. He didn't hesitate. One moment he was standing by the dead, and the next, he leapt forward, his blade in hand, the blue light falling on Avi's neck. It never reached her. A crimson blade blocked his lethal arc. He looked up, unsurprised to see Taya there. He had not sensed her until now, but she must have been close by. She pushed him back and whirled her blade aggressively. Their lightsabers kissed and kissed again, almost too fast for the human eye to see. Behind them, Avaris cackled like a witch in some child's story. Lightsabers hummed and spat as they clashed again and again. Avaris watched with supreme pleasure. Yes, Finn, she thought, discarding the dead colonel's book of scribbles. Its contents forgotten. The rage was upon Finn again, and now he would see his true power. She shifted in her seat uncomfortably. Her stomach was twisting again, painfully so. She cursed under her breath. What the bloody hell was wrong with her? She refused to worry about it. She would not be distracted. She was most eager to see this duel, and the result. The time was finally here, Finn's final choice. She was most eager to watch him make it, and come what may. She was ready to do what had to be done. Chapter 69. Head, I win. Avaris smirked as Taya and Finn danced before her, their lightsaber blades flashing with each parry and thrust. Taya disengaged, whirling her blade defensively, as Finn moved in again, aggressively trying to break through her guard. The Dark Lord was pleased, more than pleased. Tails, you lose. This was not a duel. It was a comedy of lightsabers. It didn't matter who came out on top, whichever one stood in victory. It was she that would claim the prize. If Taya won, Finn would realize that he now belonged to the dark side, that his fledgling dark powers were no match for a true Sith. From there, Avaris would take over, comfort him, and offer to show him just how powerful he could become, while at the same time, once again, offering her love and a place at her side. I will give him me, she thought happily, and he will give me everything. The most glorious of thoughts. A fair exchange to be sure. If Finn won, unlikely, but possible, it would prove his aggression and seal his pact with the dark side. Despite her recent hesitations when it came to the dark side, Taya was a great fighter. Finn's victory would prove that he deserved to be at Avaris' side, and in her bed. She would step in before the final blow. Taya was still useful after all, What if he kills her? The thought gave her pause, but only briefly. He wouldn't do that, she thought. But as she watched the blaze flashing before her, she realized that she might have miscalculated on that front. Finn was angry, and he was putting all his anger into every blow. He could do it. If he lost himself to the darkness, Taya could die. How would Avi deal with that? Taya had been her most trusted ally and confidant for almost a decade. Despite their brief issues during their time at Survivor Base, they had been friends and closer for years. Was she really ready to let her one true friend go? The Dark Lord's brow furrowed. This took a bit of thought. Taya had been most useful. Her father had helped build Avaris' financial support structure. Her mother was a feared Sith marauder. Neither were enemies the Dark Lord wished to make. Fortunately, she already had an idea of how to spend such a death. Give both the mother and father a target to direct their grief and rage towards. Taya would die in battle, killing a Jedi, and saving her Dark Lord. It would not be a lie. After all, if Finn killed her, his Jedi side would die here, and Taya would be the innocent sacrifice he needed to finally make that jump. She giggled. Innocent. Taya was far from that, but for this gambit, she was innocent enough. Giving her parents a hero, letting them know that their daughter had died serving her master, that would appease the Baron, and the fact that her daughter died in battle would please his warrior-oriented wife. It would be perfect, and best of all, Finn would finally make his sacrifice and bind himself to the dark side forever. Such a murder was as possible as it was necessary. As for the matter of innocence, well, that was more of a guideline as a law set in stone. As Adaz had told her years ago, when she executed one of their newer students on Fury to prove herself to the Sith Order. We make do with what we have, young one. Yes, she realized. She would miss Taya if she died, but if she did, her sacrifice would finally make Finn what she wanted him to be, what he needed to be. Such a sacrifice would truly be a gift of love, and Taya did love her. Why should she not sacrifice for the one she loved? The battle continued. Finn closed in again, his skill with gems so driving Taya back. She had fallen into the rhythm of Surisu now, drawing the fight out, and her opponent's aggression, as they had planned. They had not discussed the possibility of Finn winning, however, or of Finn taking Taya's life, but Avaris had thought that best. Why cloud the issue? Her friend, and sometimes lover, had a task. Best she do it without the distraction of thinking about what might happen if she lost. If she died, but it would be for the best of causes. Love. The Dark Lord steepled her hands before her and leaned back in her chair, enjoying the show. Who wouldn't want to die for love? She is faster than this. The realization cut through the red haze that clouded his thoughts, the rage that had pushed him to try and attack Avi. Giving into that rage had been a mistake, but he couldn't stop now. He was committed. Taya would kill him to protect Avi. He knew that as he knew the Force. The thought brought up another, a more uncomfortable one. Did he truly know the Force anymore? He struck savagely, his powerful cuts driving Taya back. The blonde Sith's blade was a wall of ruby light, cutting him off from reaching Avi. He could still sense her through their bond. His dream friend was amused by what was taking place, her two lovers fighting for her, one to protect, the other to stop. What would have happened had I been faster? He found himself wondering. If I had killed Avi, what would I have done then? I'm still aboard a Sith vessel moving through hyperspace. I would not have escaped. He realized Avi's guards would have killed me, but perhaps that is what I deserve. I spoke up for her when who we thought was Unabridged reached out. I let Avi in, and she destroyed the survivors. His golden eyes narrowed. My fault that. My fault. He and Taya locked blades. Both struggled for dominance, but his physical strength proved the greater, and he pushed her back. She didn't fall, though. She fell into a backward somersault and came up on her feet again. The two fighters looked at each other, both breathing heavily. Taya stood with her back to the fallen survivors, their cold blue faces staring back at him. He could almost hear their voices whispering to him through the force. Kill her. Kill the betrayer. Avenge us. Avenge us. If Taya could hear it too, she didn't show it. She held her blade before her, ready for the next exchange. We don't have to do this, Finn, she said. Lay down your blade and join us. The blonde swallowed hard. Don't make me destroy you. His eyes narrowed. You knew, he hissed. You knew the entire time, Avi's plan. You could have told someone. You could have warned us. I'm sworn to serve Avi, she reminded him. I'm sorry about the others, but I couldn't. The anger was upon him again. You can die. He flew at her again, and again. She parried his strikes. Violet light filled the shadows as blue and red blades clashed again and again. Yet, in the back of his mind, Finn could hear someone calling out, calling him to stop. He didn't listen, not now. Taya and Avi had lied to him, betrayed him. They both deserved to pay. Kill her. Avenge us. Kill her now. Avi smiled behind her steepled fingers. She whispered the words under her breath and into the force. Though she had no talent for mind tricks, it was not hard for Finn to see what she wanted him to see. All he had to do was look at the corpses of his friends and allies. His heart did the rest. Delicious. Perfect. Finn was responding without resistance, walking down the path, no running down the path she desired. He wasn't thinking, only reacting in hate and anger. Good, she thought. So very good. Is he going to kill her mother? The voice that spoke at her side was small and polite. Polite and familiar. A laugh came from the other side. Care to make a wager, sister? How many pieces will Master Finn leave Lord Taya in? Avaris frowned. I didn't wish to be disturbed, she said, as her children moved to the right and left of her throne. She had not wanted Bliss and Jir here. She had not wanted anyone here. This was a personal thing, between Finn, Taya, and herself. She had needed privacy and intimacy. She sighed. Children could be a bother sometimes. You should not be here, she growled, still refusing to meet the eyes of the two. You are not safe here. If they were worried, they didn't show it. How did you even get in here? She demanded. Bliss touched the guard's arm. Jir informed her she can be quite persuasive when she is in close contact with someone. Avaris' brow furrowed. Yes, she had observed this back on Survivor Base. The girl didn't know how to give what she wanted. That was good, but it was also cause for caution. Bliss was still young. Not everything she wanted was in her best interest, or in the interest of her mother. She would need to learn to think on the latter before the former. The fact that you can do something doesn't mean that you should, she growled, letting displeasure fill her voice. You heard, as well as everyone else, I did not wish to be disturbed. Again, her children showed no fear through the force. They remained close to her. This affects us too, Mom, Jir said. My brother is right, Bliss added. If Master Finn is to be our father, do we not have a stake in what is happening? Avaris pursed her lips. Her children did have a point. She didn't like it, but... She nodded. Stay behind me, and stay silent, she ordered. We must not disturb Finn. Not yet. Got it, Mom, Jir said, saluting exaggeratedly. We will not cause trouble, Bliss said. Avaris nodded, her attention returning to the fight before her. The testing of Finn's Shadowstone continued. Taya took a swing at Finn's head. He ducked under it and stabbed forward with his lightsaber. The blonde dodged, but the saber burned through shirt. Just above her belt, her clothes caught fire, causing Taya to flip back. Slapping at the flames, she took shelter among the cooling units, holding the bodies of the dead survivors. Finn pursued. Taya darted between the containers as Finn continued to try and attack. Avaris was surprised that her friend had retreated. Had Finn's anger truly grown so much that she was no match for him? Avaris reached out with the Force, trying to gauge what was going on in the other Sith's mind. Yes, she was told to fight defensively, but she seemed afraid to take any injury. Such fear was not like Taya. Even before she had become Agony, she had been willing to risk her body in combat. It was part of her Echini heritage. She would. Avaris' hand went to her stomach. Again, something twisted painfully there. Ow, she hissed. Mom, Jir murmured, his ever-present twisted smile fading. Mother, Bliss asked, moving from behind the throne. It is nothing, the Dark Lord assured them. There is no pain where the power lies. She managed a cruel smile. It will pass. Bliss wasn't so easily put off. She placed a hand on her mother's shoulder and reached out with the Force. Avaris felt the energies in the girl pass into her, stimulating the pleasure centers of her brain. The Dark Lord sighed as chemicals were released, relieving her pain. Bliss' brow furrowed. Again, the Dark Lord felt her reaching out, not to her mind, but something else, something within her. The girl's look of concern faded. She smiled sweetly. Oh, she almost giggled. Why, hello there. The Dark Lord's eyes fell on her daughter, the child born of fear's machinations, of her blood but not her flesh. What do you sense, child? What do you mean? The girl looked up at her mother, a hint of surprise on her face. You don't know, she said. Reach within yourself, feel it, mother. Understand. Avaris frowned, but closed her eyes, and did as the girl suggested. The breath caught in her throat. She had never sensed anything like this. Often when she meditated on the Force, she had allowed herself to fall completely into the dark currents of the Heart of Shadows, the very center of the dark side. As a girl, she had had trouble reaching those depths. Her connection to Finn had held her back, a tether of light that kept her from reaching her full potential, slaying the weaker sides of herself, destroying fear, and finally burning away true Halcyon's soul, and taking this body for her own had finally changed that. Yet, now the darkness was once again not complete. She could feel it. A single shard of light within her, not a weakness on her part, no, not in the traditional sense. This light shone from pure promise, something recently made new. The sensation, it took her breath away. What is going on? Jir asked, not picking up on what had passed between mother and daughter. Bliss smiled at him. We will have a little brother or sister soon, Jir. Before the year is out. Yes. That surprised the boy. His eyes widened. He giggled excitedly. Oh, let me see. She felt him reach out, felt his probing Force touch. It was almost painful, a sense of uncaring searching. She pushed back, not throwing him off, but seizing the touch, showing him what he sought, but also protecting what was inside her. Jir giggled. Amazing, he gasped. Avaris nodded. Yes, she couldn't agree more. New life, she thought, new life made by me, and Finn. She felt a sense of shock, a shock that almost flipped her world on its head. She had wanted this, but had not expected it to be like this. I'm pregnant, she thought. Pregnant. This changed everything, and nothing. She was tempted to reach out and stop the fight. Finn should know. It would bind him to her in a way that no mere choice could. She stopped herself. No, she thought. No. She didn't want to win this way. No. Finn had to choose the dark side willingly. If she stopped the fight now, told him, he would feel obligated to stay at her side. The desire to protect his child would keep him here. Her mouth twisted into a grim line. The desire to protect another was a Jedi trait. She wanted him free of such limitations. No, let the fight play out. She realized she would let the child be a surprise. Proof that he had chosen correctly. Her hand went to her belly. A sense of protectiveness swept over her. A mother's protectiveness, and the greed of a Sith master. The power of the Lady of Greed of Avaris. The child was hers. Not just a new life, but the next Emperor or Empress, the next Lord Avaris. She carried the future of the Empire within her. What mattered compared to that? Nothing. She sneered. This wretched galaxy would soon learn what she had already known. The suffering they had caused her would be repaid a millionfold. It was not just her, not anymore. The suffering the galaxy deserved would not end with her. Her child would pick up the lash when she was too weak to hold it anymore. Every wretched life in this galaxy would suffer beneath the rule of her child, and her child's child. Yes, she thought with a wicked smile. She would give the mundanes of this galaxy the Empress they deserved. All would suffer, she thought, with fanatic glee. All would know pain. Finn pushed through, past the containers. He drove Taya back. He could feel it now, the girl's desperation. She was struggling now, trying to keep up. He almost laughed. He was too strong for her, and when he was done with her, it would be Abby's turn. She is faster than this. The thought came to him again, just as it had at the beginning of the fight. He found himself thinking back to their duel outside of Survivor Base, the day he proved himself worthy of laying with her. The thought made his body stir. It pierced the rage that had been guiding him. It didn't make him hesitate, but it did start him thinking again. She was much faster than this. If she was truly in danger, why didn't she split her blade in two? He had seen her fight with the saber in each hand, had barely held her off when she did. She could do it. He knew she could. Yet, she seemed unwilling to do so. Why? The double blade, though capable of far greater destruction than the single hilt, did pair well with Sarisu as a defensive style. Avi preferred the single-bladed variant. He knew it gave her more options. A double blade's one drawback was, if you knew where one blade was, you knew where the other was. The main advantage it gave a wielder was that most opponents were not used to facing a foe wielding one. As he pushed forward, driving the blonde Sith back, he came to realize something. Taya was not fighting with all her heart. She was hesitating, but it was not out of fear. No. She was protecting herself, or rather. He reached out with the force, letting himself sense his opponent for the first time. He let go of his rage. It was still there, but it wasn't driving him forward. Not anymore. He used the intimacy that existed between them. When two force wielders became lovers, it changed them. To be so close to another always changed things, despite what one hoped or desired. What he sensed, what he felt shocked him. By the force. What am I doing? She sensed his hesitation, and tried to take advantage. He didn't let her. He used the dark power that Avi had helped him tap. He tore through her forked shields, and seized her by the throat. Taya gasped in surprise as he lifted her up. She tried to slash out with her weapon, but he bullied inside her guard, and swatted at the weapon, knocking it from her hand. Holding her firmly in his grip with the darkness, he forced her to her knees. His blade was at her neck. He stood over her, breathing hard. Finn, Taya whispered, perhaps shocked by his show of dark side strength. He stood over her, had her at his mercy. His mercy. Avenge us. Avenge us. He could still hear it through the force, the voices. He could do it. Yet, what he sensed, that kept him from taking that last step. Finally, stepping over into the heart of darkness. From becoming a true Sith. Her life is yours. He didn't take his eyes off Taya, but he could hear the excitement in Avi's voice. She was impressed and pleased. He had proven his strength. It excited her. His blue blade was at Taya's throat. One strike, and it was done. He looked down at her, at the deep blue of her eyes. She is afraid, he realized. She is scared of me. She should be. Avi, she said, glancing over her shoulder, looking to her friend for aid. Avi, please. The Dark Lord didn't rise from her throne. She smiled. She is yours, Finn. Avaris said. At her side, Jir giggled like a maniac. Bliss watched with rapt interest. She is mine, he thought. Mine. Taya didn't move, she remained still. His blade was so close, so close. All it will take is one flick of the wrist, he realized. Finn, she murmured, please don't. She was afraid, but she would not beg for mercy, merely ask for him to stop. Why? She had lost. His heart was pounding, the voices in his head were so loud, but he still remembered what he sensed. Was it enough to stop him? Don't get distracted, the dark side purred in his head. Do it. Do it. He looked into Taya's eyes, as he had done so many times when they had laid together. Do not hesitate, Avaris called out. Make your choice. He looked down. Taya, he said, say it. It was just one word. Yield. All she had to do was say it, and he would stop. She tried to smile. Those that ask for mercy are not worthy of it, she replied. A single tear ran down her face. Make it quick, Finn, for both of us. Finn winced. He knew. She knew that he knew. Yet, she was still willing. Her hand went to her belly. Be quick for both of us. Finn nodded. He understood. Taya was not talking about him and her. She was talking about her and the new life inside her. What the two of them had made. Finn took a shuddering breath. He knew what was expected of him. What the dark side wanted, and what Evie wanted. He shook his head. No. He shut down his saber. He wouldn't do it? He couldn't do it. Taya gasped and sank to the deck, tears now flowing from her eyes. Thank you, she murmured. Bless you. He shook his head. He was not worthy of thanks or blessing. He was a fool and a monster. He sighed. He was done. He turned to Avi. I'm leaving now, he said. I'm leaving. Avaris looked down, her temper starting to rise. What? What was this? Leaving. To go where? Where? What the hell do you think you are doing? She demanded. He refused to meet her gaze. I can't, not anymore, he replied. I'm sorry. For what? She asked. I will not go any further down the dark path, he proclaimed. I understand now. I won't let myself fall any farther. Finn looked down at the weapon on his belt, and at the bodies of his friends. I'm sorry, he murmured to them. Anno, Chris, and the others. He was so sorry. Avaris rose from her throne, her eyes glittering like molten amber. You can't do this, she hissed. Watch me, he snarled back. You are mine. Finn shook his head. We are two parts of a whole. I feel that in my bones. He gave her a sad smile. We should have been equals, but you weren't happy with that, were you? She didn't answer. What was she supposed to say? Equals. Equality was a lie. She offered him a place at her side, to help her reshape the galaxy. Did he not realize how important that was? How most Sith would not even have considered it. Don't do this, she hissed. Don't you dare. Finn shrugged. He seemed so resigned, at peace with his choice. She despised that. Despised him? How could he be so bloody calm? If he would not join her, did he not know what that meant? Everyone I kill, everything I destroy, all that suffering will be on your head, Finn. He shook his head. You can't ensnare me with that trap, Avi, not again. You are a woman with a free will, you make your own choices. If I stay, I will be no better than you. I will go from resistant partner to an accepting one far too quickly. I won't do that. I won't become that. Behind him, Taya found her feet, but she didn't move into a position to strike at him. She limped away, taking her place at Avi's side. Poor misguided girl, he thought. He felt only pity for Taya. Avaris stood over him. He was lost in her shadow, and that of the dark side, but he would go no further. He refused to go any further. You will die, she reminded him. So be it, he said. Her expression was a mask of rage and disbelief. Disbelief and pain. I've hurt her, he realized. I'm sorry for that too. You can't leave me, she hissed. Not again, Not alone. I won't let you. You could stop, he said. You could end this, right now. Go no further. He let what he wanted go unsaid. You can't come with me, leave all this behind. We can't find a place of our own, we can find some peace. He let those thoughts fill their bond, but she would have none of it. She was furious. The dark side has chosen me. She shouted, I'm the Empress. He sighed. He had hoped, thought that, maybe. She was part of him. He thought that if he asked, they could stop all this, go off together, find a new world, but no. No. She wouldn't accept that. He understood that. The dark side was who she was. He had to be true to who he was. He shook his head. He felt pity for her too. Poor Avi. And I am a Jedi, he said, and I will be deceived by you no longer. Her expression was cold, hurt, and enraged. You can't leave me, she hissed. You can't. You can't force me to stay, he said, holding out his hands. You know what you must do. She clenched her fists. Her rage was a terrible thing. He could feel it through their bond. Finally, she sighed, accepting. So be it, Jedi. He started to gather his strength. He knew what was coming. He tried to draw his weapon, defend himself. It didn't matter. She tore through his defenses like they weren't there. She flung him against the far wall, his right arm shattering from the impact. Before he could even cry out, he flew across the hold again, striking hard enough to break bones. He slid down the wall, lost in a world of pain. What I deserve, he thought. All I deserve. He crawled to his knees and tried to summon force judgment, hoping that searing the Dark Lord's spirit would be enough to make her see sense, to stop before she committed the horror she would commit. Only blue-violet Sith lightning flashed from his fingers, a few weak bolts. All were easily absorbed by Avaris. All they did was enrage her, all they accomplished was to further piss her off. He was caught in a maelstrom of force lightning. He fell then screaming. What I deserve, he thought. All I deserve. Darth Avaryss snarled. She couldn't believe it. The fool, she thought. The fool. He lay before her, his arm shattered, likely his leg as well. He sat up and tried to blast her with force lightning. Her. She absorbed it and returned it tenfold. Fool, she snarled. He cried out in pain as the lightning embraced him, lighting him up like a torch. She sneered. You have fallen too far, and the light has abandoned you. Only the darkness is open to you now, and your fledgling dark abilities are no match for the full, unchecked power of the dark side. She blasted him again. You had so much potential, such a future, and you throw it away. You reject me. She blasted him again. You denied me. Finn cried out, but didn't try to escape. He lay there wheezing pathetically. Why couldn't you just accept and become what I wanted? She picked him up with the dark side and flung him again. He hit with resounding crash. Why couldn't you just be mine? Yes, Cheer crowed, laughing manically. Kill him, mother. Destroy the Jedi. Bliss said nothing. She watched in horror from behind her mother's throne. Let her watch, Avaris thought. Let her learn. She approached Finn again. He tried to pull his lightsaber from his belt, though he could no longer stand to wield it. She ripped it from his grip and destroyed it with the Force, tearing the blade apart and scattering the crystals within. He would die without a weapon and without the light. The thought amused her. What a Jedi you were in the end, Worm. She shook her head. Why had the Force wasted her time? Why had it made her a part of him? Why? Avi, stop, Taya said from behind her. She ignored her friend. Avi. What? She whirled on her friend, fury glowing in her golden eyes. Taya cringed and dropped to her knees. The Dark Lord was almost tempted to destroy her too. Maybe Finn's dalliance with her had been what weakened him. Maybe she should die too. Don't end it quick. Let him suffer, Taya said quickly, holding up her hands in submission. There are fates worse than death. Avaris didn't strike. She didn't attack Taya, no matter how much she wanted to. She was curious. Explain. Taya smiled cruelly. He doesn't understand the galaxy, not like you do. It is a cruel and wicked place, Let him experience it. The blonde found her feet. She went to friend. You felt it, just as I did. The light has abandoned him. All he has now is the dark. Let him go into exile with that knowledge and lack of skill. Let him be hunted by the Zakuul, by the Jedi, and bounty hunters alike. He will find no friends and no allies. He will be alone, so very alone. Avaris listened, her temper cooling. So far, she liked what she was hearing. Yes, let him suffer. Delicious. How long will it take before he realizes that all he has left is us? You, I mean. How long until he returns to us as a prodigal Sith? Until he accepts you as his Empress and his wife. Behind her, Finn groaned. Avi doubted he could hear her, his nervous system so completely scrambled by Force lightning. He would return, she realized, if she let him live, let him suffer in loneliness and pain. In time, he would know. In time, he would understand. She looked at Taya. She was trying to hide the truth from her friend and master, but Avaris could sense it. Taya was trying to save Finn. She cared about him more than she would admit. She wouldn't betray her friend and lord for him, but... Avaris nodded. Despite her reasons for suggesting it, the plan was still sound. Avi still liked it. Let the galaxy be Finn's crucible. Let it burn away the last of the Jedi weaknesses he clung to. If he was slain, then, well, he wasn't strong enough to be with her, or be a father to her child. He would understand the galaxy as she did, that it deserved what she was about to do to it. He would return to the one place he would be accepted, and his child and wife. He would return in humility and gratitude. She would forgive him? He was probably the only one she would forgive. She nodded. Yes, let him suffer. Who else would have him but her? Who else? She nodded and placed a hand on her friend's shoulder. You do understand pain, don't you, Darth Agony? Taya shrugged. It was all I had once, she smiled. I know how it can transform someone. The Dark Lord nodded. Yes? So shall it be, she thought. So it must be. Bliss finally emerged from behind the throne. She came to Taya's side, as Jir sneered down at Finn. A Jedi abandoned by the light, Avi thought. How pathetic. You will come back to me, she growled down at him. We will be together again. She raised her hands. But first, one final hell to send you on your way. Something to remember me by. She cast the spell, the same one that Darth Fear had used on her years ago. The punishment he had subjected her to. Finn fell away. She trapped him in his own head, in a sea of nightmares. She grinned triumphantly. She had survived it. Perhaps he could too. In the meantime, he would pay. She looked down at the writhing, broken body. She sneered. You are stronger than you know, my love, she thought. Your rage is stronger. Find your way out. She turned away from him then, leaving him convulsing on the deck, lost in his own mind, his own torments. She smiled. A small taste of what this wretched galaxy would be getting when she finally came into her crown. She spoke into her comlink, summoning a medical team. They would make Finn fit for travel, his body anyway. She would find some lightly populated world, some place where scum had sway. She would place a bounty on Finn, let the hunters test him, forge him into the man that she wanted him to be. One day, he would return. He would know that today he had made a mistake. He would return. She gestured as the four of them stepped out of the hold. She shut off the lights, leaving Finn in darkness. She grinned, even as her hand drifted to her belly, and the new life taking shape there. She no longer minded the pain. It was part of her. He will return to us, little one, she promised her child. He will suffer and he will break, but in the end. She almost laughed. He will return. Chapter 70. In less than 10 hours, the planet of Bantoon had fallen to Avaris and the Sith. The Dark Lord had watched the battle from the bridge of her destroyer. Not that it had been much of a battle. The loyalists of Darth Acina had been preparing for this day for decades. A battle? No, she thought with a knowing smile. A massacre? The thought sent a chill of pleasure down her spine. A glorious, wonderful massacre. Delicious. All thanks to Darth Acina, the glory of Darth Acina. She was more than pleased. Her road to the throne began here. Praise the dark side. Praise Acina. Long ago, the great Sith Master had decided that this would be the world where he would establish his throne. He had not trusted Drahman Kas, or the other Sith living there, those that had spurned him. They had viewed him as an outsider, the bastard child of a Dark Council member. Avaris could relate. So his plan had begun. As a young Darth, he had struck out into the galaxy, searching for a world that would serve as both his throne and fortress. Upon finding Bantoon, the work had begun, as he had worked his way into the corridors of power and prestige. He had established connections and pawns to be used when the time was right. No, the taking of Bantoon was no lark. It was the plan of a diligent and brilliant Sith mastermind, and though he had not survived to see its completion, his work had continued through his followers, and through the actions of those followers, those who continued his dream, that dream had finally become a reality. Avaris' reality. She regarded her new capital, a pretty world as things went, tropical with great oceans and small continents, dotted with walled cities. 6 moons orbited the planet, moons rich in resources. Those moons fueled the shipyards that orbited 2 of those moons. Bantoon, a jewel of the Republic, a jewel that was now hers. Though situated in the midrim, the planet was fairly isolated. Only a single hyperspace corridor led in or out. That entrance, the Afon Way, had been heavily defended since the Sith had first reclaimed Korriban over 40 years ago. Almost inaccessible and easily defendable, Avaris had thought as she had studied the map of the planet. She could now understand why it had been chosen by Darth Acina, that, and the fact that the old man had come to desire the world. Its 6 moons were a wealth of resources, and in medical and genetic technology second to none. The former was useful, the latter necessary for his plans. Even though Death Knell had not truly existed yet, Acina had planned for something like it. He had also seen value in the Sworn Protector program, the means by which the Bond created their genetically altered bodyguards. The Protector program had served Acina well. It created hundreds of sleeper agents just waiting for activation. As his rightful heir, Avaris had finally sent those activation codes. Bantoon's powerful had no defense. And now, it was all hers. They had entered the Afon Way almost unopposed. The band's main source of defense was that the access point had been mined. Dozens of different types of mines made up this field. Gravity mines to slow advancing ships, seismic charge devices to tear through shields and armor, and laser web mines that surrounded and destroyed fighter craft. A most lethal defense, maintained by a fleet of droids who used the various chemicals and metals of Afon's rings to assemble more and more mines, making the field almost self-sustaining. Almost unbeatable, except for the human element. This minefield was controlled by 2 cloaked space stations, one over Bantoon itself, and the other over the Afon gas giant. Either station could activate the field if invaders were detected. If one station was destroyed, the second would make sure the invaders still paid a heavy price for their entry. If Afon station fell, its controls could be locked out by the controller aboard their sister station. On Bantoon, the mines would not be shut down. Access to the final leg of Approach the World could only be achieved through proper authorization. It required both stations to approve entry, and to fully deactivate the mines and allow safe passage. It had kept the world safe for decades, and would have if not for the Sworn Protectors, Acina's final gift to the people of Bantoon. Thanks to Acina's tinkering with the brain modifications of Bantoon's Sworn Protectors, along with several allies hidden among that nobility, the Sith arrived unopposed. A fleet of 8 ships, 2 Harrow-class dreadnoughts, 4 Terminus-class destroyers, and 2 gauge transport ships emerged from hyperspace and secured Afon. 6 Bond light escorts had detected the Sith fleet but had been unable to do much. 4 had been destroyed, while the remaining 2 escaped into hyperspace, not that it would be able to do much on their own. The Sith were jamming all communications for 20 parsecs. By the time the ship managed to be far enough away to call for help, the battle would be over. Only the battle station that controlled the mines was a problem, but it was one easily solved. The Bon on board had not managed to get a distress call off. The noble-born commander died before she could call for help, or formally deploy their defense field, murdered by her own sworn protector, following a signal from Darth Avaryss. From there, Sith loyalists among the station's crew had crushed any further resistance. These men and women had lived as sleeper agents for decades, and only now awoke to fulfill their duty to the Sith. They sent the signal to the Bentoon station, informing the Sith loyalists there that it was time. When that station fell, so would the planet. For nearly half an hour the Sith fleet had waited for the station to inform them that Bentoon Defense Base was now theirs. Avaris knew the plan would succeed, but still could not entirely calm her nerves or completely kill the sense of resentment in her heart. Finn should have been here, she thought morosely. The father of my child should have been here. Her stress caused the new life within her to stir, paining her. She touched her belly, stoking it gently, while sending calming thoughts through the Force. It is okay, she thought, we are fine. She looked out the viewport. We are fine. She took a breath and tried to remain calm. Normally, she would have sought out Taya, but her friend was currently down in medical, being checked out after her duel with Finn. She seemed a bit nervous around her old friend. The Dark Lord hoped that she would not let the fact that Avi had all but offered her life to Finn cloud their relationship. Avaris had done what was needed. Now, they needed to move on. Yet, she could not entirely do that. Her thoughts kept drifting back to Finn. Their connection, when she touched it, was filled with terror and pain. She knew the effectiveness of the spell she had used. Fear had only needed to use it on her once, and that had been enough. In her weaker moments, she still had nightmares of what she had seen during those tormenting days, that dark eternity where she had been lost in her own mind, a slave in her own body. Finn was enduring that now. Who knew if he was strong enough to find his way back? She believed her would, but still. She frowned. Stop it. What is done is done. He will either emerge, or he won't. She nodded grimly. Yes, he would either succeed, or perish. Such was the way of the Sith, her way. Finn needed to be strong. He needed to become Sith. She shook her head. Now was not the time for this. It was best not to focus on Finn's fate. She had done what she could. He had been abandoned on a harsh world, still lost in his own nightmares. It was here that he would begin his exile, the bounty on his head posted. Yes, she thought him strong enough to survive the spell, to fight his way back to the waking world. But even then, his nightmare was just beginning. He would be hunted by all, hunters, Jedi, Zakul, everyone. He would learn to embrace his hate. He would learn to trust his anger and destroy those beneath him. He would either survive, or he would not. She stewed on that thought, waiting for the next part of the battle to begin. She was grateful when it did. When the all-clear came over the comm system, the Sith fleet jumped immediately to Bentoon. They roared into the system ready for war. The Bon had not known what hit them. They had received no warning from the battle station over their heads. Bentoon Station was under the command of Lord Lyrhan Dustin, a cousin of the royal family, and a long-time secret Sith supporter. His grandfather, General Lyrhan Dustin, had tried to usurp the throne 50 years ago, only to be slain by Jaz Darbin and his young wife. Lyrhan and his family had waited decades for a chance at payback. Queen Viseria had shown mercy to cousin, and in this, the compassion of the royal family had been their undoing. They had given the man everything he needed to betray them. His lordship had been raised in the royal court, serving as both a page and hostage, a means to ensure his family's loyalty, as his father had before him. Hikitas had approached that father before he had fled, and offered revenge that the son was now helping carry out. The man did his part to aid the invasion. No distress calls were sent out as the Sith fleet arrived, and deployed starfighters. The Bon on the moons detected their arrival, and tried to mount a defense, but the Sith fleet was ready for them. The battle had gone swiftly after that. Though a member of the Republic, Bentoon was also a client world of the Mining Guild, an organization the Sith had infiltrated during their first war to overthrow the Republic. It was through his contacts in the mining guild that Hikitas had laid the groundwork for establishing Sanctuary Base. Avaris had learned this and more from Hikitas' allies. Through her first teacher Master Adaz, Sanctuary, and all her allies had been offered to Avaris as the highest ranking of Hikitas' loyalists. It fell to her to rule over his holdings and lead his forces still hidden on Bantoon. Queen Visaria and Jaz Darbin had not been as thorough as they believed. The late Dark Lord's men had hidden well and thrived in the decades since their master's death, and now they were ready. Ready to bring pain and fire. Sith starfighters launched from two of Bantoon's 6 moons, ships that had been in hiding for decades, aiding the invaders. Bantoon planetary shipyards found itself under attack, fighters swarming among the dry dock ships, drawing away the defense fleet that served as the planet's only protectors after the minefield had failed. Hurricane-class escorts and Tempest-heavy destroyers tried to engage the Sith, but they were caught between the planet's gravity well and determined Sith vessels who had been provided with information on their weaknesses. In other words, the battle quickly turned into another rout, a massacre. The fight had not been much of a fight at all. Again, Avaris was most pleased. Soon only wreckage floated over the besieged planet, all that remained of the planet's defenders. The Sith achieved orbit and prepared to land their troops. Bantoon still tried to send out distress calls, even as it readied itself for ground assault. Its defenders raised their planetary shield, the last line of defense against attack. Avaris was not concerned. They didn't even need to open fire. She sent a coded signal to the nobles that had promised their aid, and those nobles in turn sent signals to the houses of their rivals, signals that soon reached the ears of the sworn protectors of those nobles. Avaris leaned back in her throne, letting herself sink deep into the dark side. She felt as it happened, as hundreds of murders echoed across the surface of the world. Enemies of the Sith struck down by their own defenders, captains, generals, and political leaders. They all died, killed by their own bodyguards, people that had guarded their backs for years, if not decades. Treachery, deception, cunning, the weapons of the dark side were they, and now, those weapons were being deployed against Avaris' enemies on Bantoon. 10 hours after the operation had begun, the planetary shield dropped, and a signal of welcome came from the royal palace. Bantoon now belonged to the Dark Lord of the Sith. Darth Avaryss' reign had begun. She informed the acting captain of her ship that she was retiring to her quarters. It was now night in the capital. She would arrive on the world with the dawn. She would look upon her new throne world as the sun rose, the dawning of a new era, an age of darkness, the age of Avaris. "This one is crying, master." Avaris looked up from her meditations. She had slept little this night, her stomach still bothering her. Morning sickness, she now knew. She had spoken with the medical droid about it. He had suggested several curatives to aid with the nausea, but right now, that didn't concern her. She was too full of victory to care about an upset stomach. Right now, she was flying high. Unable to rest anymore, she made her way to one of the training rooms aboard the destroyer. One Nell elite accompanied her, acting as bodyguard. Her apprentice was within, already practicing the sequences of lightsaber combat. The two said nothing to each other, both preparing for the new day in their own ways. As Avaris meditated, and Rain practiced the sequences of Nine, the elite trooper stood guard. It was this elite that drew the younger woman's attention. The Dark Lord turned to Rain and the guard. KT, E01, also known as Char Valentine, sworn protector, and chief of security for the royal family of Bantoon, stood at attention behind her, now clad in the robes and armor of an imperial royal guard. Her helmet was off, revealing her features, her eyes turned yellow by the effects of death knell, her aged features hardened by years of combat and stress, her reddish-brown hair more gray than anything else. Still, the old protector didn't look weak. Despite her age, she was hardened, like an old war blade, notched from use but still very sharp. Which is why the crying seemed so out of place. Avaris looked at the old woman. Tears were indeed streaming down her cheeks. The Dark Lord smiled. She was impressed. "Observe, apprentice," she said to Rain. "Observe a show of powerful will, This unit's programming made it a servant to our needs long ago, its true purpose hidden for decades, even from itself. Avaris wiped at the tears on her face. Right now, the woman she was, the person she thought she was, is trapped in her own head. She is aware of what is going on, but is powerless to do anything about it. She is quite literally trapped in her own body, probably screaming, trying to get out, yet all she can do is shed tears. The Dark Lord chuckled. The fact that she can do that shows her will. Most impressive. Such strength should be honored. Rain said, clearly not as impressed as her master. Wonder what is causing it, she said, the tears. Avaris grinned. Let's ask her, she said matter-of-factly. She turned to the Nell Trooper. You may speak freely, KT, E01. Tell us, what is causing you such distress? The older woman sobbed. She couldn't move unless her master ordered, but she could speak and cry freely as well, it appeared. Astonishing. Please, she said. Please, stop. Don't do this. This, Avaris asked. The woman swallowed hard. My queen, please, my lord. You have taken her husband. Her world. Please don't. Let her live. Please? Avaris snorted. She had not killed Jaz Darben, as much as she had desired to. Still, she saw no reason to split hairs. The man had died at her feet. She had not had the talent to save him, or try to summon help. So she might have killed him, she supposed. She had expected anger from the Queen's defender. Mox had been furious, but then again, E01 had been under her power for far longer, and the power of Hikitas for almost 5 decades. She had been a protector since she had been in her early 20s, and now, into her 70s. Perhaps she had come to understand how pointless anger was, how hopeless her situation was. If so, the Dark Lord was pleased. You have been this woman's slave for almost 50 years, Avaris reminded her. I'm surprised to see you so loyal. Not a slave. Vess, my queen, she has been like a daughter to me. The only daughter I've ever known. Her children, my lord, please, stop. Avaris snarled. Silence. She barked. Char Valentine's jaw snapped shut. Avaris smiled wickedly. Such attachment. What emotional nonsense. Rain grinned. We should make her kill the Queen, Master. It would be fun. The Nell Trooper's eyes widened. She knew she could not say no. Not with her programming, and death knell poison flowing through her veins. New tears spilled from her eyes. Avaris could not deny it. She was tempted, but... She sighed. Sadly, we must deny ourselves that fun. Rain, she said, we still need the Queen. Though we have eliminated many of our enemies on the surface, there are still many matriarchs and political leaders that are on the fence over our invasion. Rain sneered. Then we kill them too. No, Avaris growled, her temper rising. The girl was a fool. She didn't understand. She almost informed her of that but held herself in check. The med droid had warned her that she might feel some emotional changes, or perhaps, merely worse than normal. The rage she was experiencing was overkill. Her apprentice was young. She needed to be taught, not punished. Avaris sighed and took a deep breath. She started again. We have yet to consolidate our position, apprentice. Our allies have surrendered power to us, but we still need to maneuver the best people into the best positions. Plus, there are those on the surface who will try to resist us. We need to keep them from unifying against us. The best way to do that is not make martyrs so soon after our conquest. Rain sniffed. We use the Queen as a hostage. There are those among the band who will not act if we have her in hand. Plus, we can use her to keep her royal children in check. They will not wish to see their mother harmed, and she will seek to protect them. Rain nodded. Her smile returned. Their compassion for each other will be their undoing. Exactly, the Dark Lord nodded, pleased that the girl understood. That being said, she felt a sense of disquiet in her apprentice. What? She demanded. You are angry with me. It is nothing, master. It is clearly not nothing, girl. Speak your mind. Rain worried her lip with her teeth. Yet, she did gather her courage and speak. She glared at her master. You let Finn live. The Dark Lord's brow furrowed. That bothers you. Shouldn't it? The girl spat. He openly defies you. And you, what? Leave him on some dirt ball and forget about him. I've not forgotten. You still let him go. He has not escaped. He has given himself to the dark side. I spoke with Lord Taya. She said Master Finn backed away from you, that he feared what you had unleashed in him. So what? Rain's eyes widened. The weak have no place amongst us. If Finn had fear, he had weakness. You should have destroyed him, crushed him like the bug he was. Avaris turned, her temper starting to flare. Finn still doesn't understand what he is, apprentice, he will. The young girl sneered. You hope? There is no hope. The master shot back. Finn will return, I foreseen it. He doesn't deserve any special treatment. He is Finn. So what? Rain's words stopped her in her tracks, fueling her rage. So what? Had the girl actually said that? So what? Rain continued to glare daggers at her. Why is he so special, master? You blow up my boyfriend with an atomic weapon. Yet, you spare yours. That's not right. It's not fair. Avaris' hands clenched. She was tempted to cast the nightmare spell again, give Rain the same treatment she gave Finn, but she didn't. She took a deep breath and centered herself. She glared with icy coldness at her student. Rain, sensing the danger she was in, backed down from her aggressive stance. She was angry, yes, but she was not stupid. She knew her master's power. She was not ready to challenge her yet, not over this. No, Rain was not a fool. Her wisdom pleased her master and calmed her somewhat. Rain shook her head, cursing under her breath. She looked at her master sullenly. It is not fair, she grumbled. No, Avaris agreed. She shook her head. She found herself thinking about Corbin and the tomb of a hunter pole, about Spindral, the old hermit. Avaris nodded. She remembered his lesson well. You are familiar with the Sith code, are you not, apprentice? Of course. Peace is a lie there? There is only passion. I know, master. Through passion I gain strength, and through strength I gain power. Yes, the Dark Lord hissed. Fairness is not part of the Sith doctrine. Passion is a vehicle, Rain. Strength is the road. A Sith travels down that path to the destination, the only destination that matters. Power, Rain said, accepting her master's words. Power is what matters. Your desires, the things you think you need, are only part of the journey. I learned this lesson at your age on Corbin. I allowed myself to be distracted by a pure-blooded boy, and was nearly destroyed for that distraction. Rain's jaw was set in a grim line. What am I supposed to do then? Just forget about Tim. Just move on like nothing happened. I'm no Jedi. I can't turn off my emotions like that. You would be of no use to me if you could, Avaris replied. As for giving up, I don't think you should do so, not yet. Tell me, Rain, did you sense Tim and die? The girl didn't respond. She looked down at her feet. Did you sense his death? The Dark Lord repeated. No, the girl said in a small voice, but how could he have survived? An atomic weapon detonated over the caves he was hiding in. Don't underestimate the power of the old blood, her master warned. We still don't know what happened in those tunnels. The survivors didn't share their secret with us. Tim may have escaped. And even if he did, Rain said angrily again, what would he think of me? For what I did? What I helped you do? The girl shook her head. If he survived, he probably hates me now. Avaris almost laughed. Poor girl, she is so young. Age did bring some relief to such fears, not to mention wisdom. If he still lives, do not let him hate you. Draw on the desires of a first love, use those feelings, yoke them. Rain frowned. Her brow furrowed. I don't understand. A sad smile came to her face. Despite my lifelong attraction to Finn, Fel was my first love. I was willing to do anything for him, even leave the Sith Order to be his wife. The girl nodded, listening closely. What would you do if Tim was hurt? If he was in danger, would you try to save him? Don't lie now. Don't think about the answer you think I want to hear. Speak honestly, plainly. I would go to him. I would help him forgive me, master, but I would. Avaris nodded. He likely feels the same. How could he not? She brushed the girl's cheek fondly. Use those emotions. Let him believe that you are in trouble. You will be surprised what a boy will do for a damsel in distress, especially this boy. Remember, he shoved me back at Survivor Base, and that was even before you two did anything. Rain blushed. We never did do anything, master. That was the problem. Avaris blinked. Now it was her turn to be surprised. Really, you two never? Rain shook her head. He was a gentleman, sometimes too much of a gentleman if you ask me. The Dark Lord nodded. You said as well, the promise of things to come. You would be surprised how tempting that can be, you might even. The door behind them chimed. Avaris frowned. That would be General Glask, with the final report of the battle. She was most interested to see it, and the general himself. This was the first time she had seen him in person in almost 2 years. Once this battle was concluded, they would need to speak in private. He was after all Sinestra Fear's cousin. Part of her still wondered how much he knew about Darth Fear's body double thing. Had he hidden that from her? Plus there was the matter of Sin Fear. Neither Avaris nor her allies had seen the girl die. If she escaped the destruction of her house, Avaris wanted to know. That was a discussion for later. For now, they had a war to win, and a planet to secure. She gestured to the door, causing it to hiss open. General Hennon Glask, the head of her ground forces, stood at attention, a data pad in hand. Yes, General, the Dark Lord said. My lord, Lady Rain, report from Bantoon, the elimination list you requested. Avaris nodded and reached out with the force, pulling the pad to her hands. As she perused the list, taking note of the dead or captured, she glanced over at Rain. The girl's anger was still there, but it was now firmly under control. She still fears for Tim, and blames me, at least partially, for his disappearance, yet she was willing to entertain the notion that he lived. She needed to believe that, and that her master offered her the means to reclaim him, if and when he popped up again. That was good too. Rain accepted the truth. She still needed her master, and the Sith teachings. More to the point, she knew that she needed them. That was good too, especially now that Avaris would soon have a child to care for. Rain would do what she could to keep her master safe, and by extension keep her future apprentice safe. If and when Avaris fell to Rain's blade, her child, the next Lord Avaris, would become the new Sith Lord's apprentice. Or if Avaris beat Rain, she would take the child as her next apprentice, and the cycle would continue. She needed to make sure that Rain understood that, accepted that. It was the only way to ensure the continuance of her bloodline. Avaris frowned. She looked down at the pad again. She was not happy with what she was seeing. James Darbin's youngest daughter is not on this list. I see the mother, the brother, and the eldest sister, but not the girl. She frowned at the general. What is going on, Glask? Where's Bela Istillo? The general tensed. We are still searching, my lord. Though it appears that the girl was off-planet when the attack began. She had recently been given a military command in their space forces, of one of their escort groups. It is possible she may have been on one of the escort ships or forces engaged when they entered the Aphon system. Avaris frown deepened. She is likely dead, the general added quickly, killed on one of the vessels that were destroyed in our attack. Or she could have been aboard one of the ships that escaped, the Dark Lord snarled. She almost cursed. Bela Istillo, she had never met the girl, but knew her name. In fact, she had come to curse it. Lucky little Shudda. Had HK done his job right, Avaris would have become Bela Istillo. She had been the Dark Lord's first choice of a host body. Had HK succeeded, and Avaris took the girl's body, she would never have returned to the Empire after the ritual that saved her life. She would have come to Bantoon, arranged the death of her parents and siblings, and then, as an only child, led Bantoon as his ruling queen. There would have been no reason for trickery then. She would have invited the Sith to Bantoon and joined the Empire freely. Alas, things had not worked out. HK failed in his work, and Avaris had settled for true housing, a downgrade perhaps, but the result was the same now. Bantoon was hers, but if the girl was alive, she might recruit allies, form a resistance against Avaris' regime. That could not be allowed. Have our people search the wreckage in Afon. She ordered Glask, find the princess, alive or dead. If she has escaped, offer a bounty for her, 500,000 dead, 1,000,000 alive. Glask frowned. A large amount for a single enemy, my lord. Do not question. Glask, obey. The general nodded. As you say, my lord. Her eyes again turned to the list. It was not as long as she hoped. How did so many matriarchs escape or purge? I've spoken with Lord Lyrhan. He blames the escapes on the Paladina, but don't worry, master. We will deal with any escapees in due time. Rain frowned. What is a Paladina? She asked. A Bond Jedi sect, Avaris told her apprentice, formed by Jaz Darbin and some Wifid Jedi who came to this world with him. They are descended from the Bond sorcerers that once aided the nobles and military of this world. The Dark Lord scowled at the general. The Paladina were supposed to be exterminated before we arrived. I sent orders to have our allies purge their temple. The temple was taken, master, Glask assured her, but our agents arrived to find it empty. The Paladina had already vanished. Search their records, Avaris demanded. Get a list of all Paladina and their families, exterminate them to the last living child. Glask looked down at his jackboots. He bowed his head. Avaris didn't like that. What? The Paladina must have sensed your coming, master. Perhaps the Force warned them. Not only was their temple empty, but its archives had been purged. No records remained. Rain blinked, her scowl becoming almost as dark as Avaris. Are you telling us, General, that not only have the local Jedi escaped, but we have no idea of who they are, or how many are still on planet? We know the names of some, Glask said, clearly sweating now. Kit Shalia, their Grand Master, is known, as is Vel Zoris, the Jedi ambassador. Were they killed in the attack? Avaris demanded. The general said nothing, he simply stood at silent attention. That silence spoke volumes. The Dark Lord almost lost her temper again. Fool, she thought. Moronic fool. Not only had one of the royal family escaped, but now they had an unknown number of Jedi loyalists running free on her capital. Loyalists with undisciplined Force powers. What a nightmare. Who knew what damage they could cause? Avaris still needed to construct her focusing temple on Bantoon. How hard would that be with Jedi actively fighting her? Avaris looked at the general, her hand drifting to her lightsaber. It would be so easy. She looked at Rain, her apprentice looked as eager as she was to take the general's head. Once upon a time, Avaris would have been tempted to let her. Sadly, she couldn't do that. She still needed Glask. He was her go-between with the matriarchs and the Sith Empire proper. She would need his contacts to construct the temple. She needed Sith alchemists and architects, men and women who knew about temple construction. It would be hard to get them past Acina, the Zakuul, and what was left of the Dark Council, but it could be done. She needed all those things to finish the plan. Without those resources, the conquest would be that much harder, maybe impossible. She took a deep breath, and again, felt her child shift within her. She put her hand protectively to her belly. It is okay, she murmured. We are fine. She turned to Glask. Seek out Lord Lyrhan. Tell the Bond that I'm displeased. Order him to hunt the Paladina. Give him what assassins and marauders he needs to finish this task. Glask sneered. It will be done, but isn't this overkill? I've read the reports of our allies. These Paladina do not seem much of a threat. The Jedi believe them to be a lesser sect, a collection of talented novices, no more. They're unknown, General, Avaris hissed. To be unknown is to be unbeatable. I will not let a rogue Force sect interfere with my plans. Inform Lyrhan of this. He will deliver me the heads of any and all Paladina, or I will take his. Glask nodded. Some of the fear went out of his face, grateful to place the blame on their Bonali. Perhaps we can interrogate the queen, or her heir. It is said that both princesses trained with the Paladina. Good thinking, General, Avaris said. We will have Princess Myrix brought up to one of our interrogation suites for a chat. We must be careful, Master, Rain said. We can't kill the royals, not yet. Fear not, Avaris answered. The girl will not be permanently damaged. Glask smirked, likely anticipating a very harsh questioning. Avaris dismissed him with a wave of his hand. He left, closing the door behind him, leaving Avaris, Rain, and Nell Trooper Valentine behind. Tears still streamed down the old woman's face, likely fearing for a girl she thought of as her grandchild. Avaris ignored her, let her weep in ocean. It made no difference. Rain gave her master a sly smirk. Finn, the missing survivors, an escaped princess, and now Jedi loose on our new throne world. The girl chuckled. So much for winning the war. Avaris glared at her apprentice again. She was tempted to strike her for her insolence, but again held back. Rain would be a major part of her victory. Her battle meditation would be more than useful. The Dark Lord nodded. Things were not perfect, but what problems remained were not unsolvable. They had lost a few minor skirmishes, nothing more. She turned to her student, her child's future master. We have everything we need to win the war, apprentice. All the problems you described will be dealt with. We have the keys and Death Knell, and soon we will have a temple to increase and focus our power. Death Knell will spread throughout the galaxy. Free thought itself will die, and the Sith will rule the galaxy, not just a single empire, but all of it. Zackle, Republic, Hutt Space, nothing will remain but what I rule, and I shall rule everything. Rain bowed, one of the insolent, exaggerated bows that Avaris barely tolerated. All hail the Sith, my master, and all hail Avaris. The Dark Lord sneered, her hand once again patting her flat belly, flat now, but not for long, if what she remembered of her mother's pregnancies were true. Again, she found herself wishing for Finn, craved his touch, the taste of his skin. She hated that he had turned fearful just when everything should have been hers. He had been a fool, and she had no time for fools. He would find wisdom in exile, or he would die. If he fell, so be it. She would continue on, his child would continue on, and rule after her, and the child after that, and the one after that. She focused on that, not her fear. I do not fear, she thought. A Sith knows no fear. A Darth is fear. A Darth is death. She had a healthy body, a child on the way, her family, her apprentice, her throne world, and soon the galaxy. Everything else would fall into place. It would fall or be burned away. Either way, she would win. All hail the Sith, Avaris thought with no small amount of amusement. All hail Avaris. Chapter 71. He nearly died in his sleep. Finn's eyes snapped open as the blade touched his throat. He could feel the pressure of the rusted metal against his skin, even though he was not entirely sure where he was. He did the only thing he could do. He screamed and lashed out with the Force. Lashed out with the dark side. The telekinetic pulse pushed the shade standing over him away. He stumbled to his feet, screaming, only to find himself surrounded by shades, the raised corpses of the survivors, some still burning from the nuclear fire that Avi had unleashed upon them. Dr. Tag, Major Locke, Master Anno, Chris Capiston, they were all there, all crying out for his blood, even Timon, his student. Even Tim. He had no weapon as they came at him, wailing and reaching out with skeletal claws and blades. Traitor, they shrieked. Murderer, they cried. Sith, they roared. Sith. As it was on Avi's ship, the light side was still blocked to him. He couldn't sense it, much less draw on his power. All that was left to him was fear and anger. The nightmares refused to let go. Even now they tried to pull him back down into unconsciousness and damnation. He was terrified, enraged. He had no choice. He lashed out with all his emotions. Shadow versus shadow, his enemies didn't stand a chance. They flew back as he raised his hands and sent blasts of Sith lightning burning through the air. One spirit made it through and stabbed at him with a rusty viper blade. He danced around it, and reached out with the force, snapping his neck. Fen, stop! The cry echoed through the force. The voice of the blue woman who had tried to save him on Tatooine. They're people, Fen, not ghosts. Wake yourself up. You're not dreaming now. Stop. Stop. He stumbled back, blade still in hand. He shook his head, slapping himself across the face, hard. The world finally came back into focus. The shadows faded as he finally shook off the last of Avi's spell. The nightmares were still there, but he was strong enough to look beyond them. He took in his surroundings, and what he saw. No, he thought. Oh no. He was standing on a barren plain, a blue pitiless sky above him, 2 suns burning down. The ghosts that had been attacking him had been a pack of scavengers, people, humans, and aliens in ratty robes and bits of armor. They fled his attacks, boarding rusted-out speeders and swoops, streaking away across the sandy plains, leaving their dead behind, theirs and Fenn's. He swallowed hard, his heart pounding his chest. What had happened, he wondered. Where am I? He fell to his knees, breathing heavily. He gasped. Everything hurt. His shirt was gone, as were his boots. His skin was scarred with electrical burns, mementos of his chastisement by Avi. One injury, he thought, one of many. He looked down at his arm, finding a metal brace, and signs of injections. Koto more than likely. His ribs had been taped, and his right ankle fitted with a brace. His chest was. He looked down with a shuddering breath. On his chest, right next to his left shoulder, was a brand, the sigil of Avaris house, he recognized. The skin red and slightly melted, the burning sensation becoming sharper as his head cleared. He couldn't believe it. She had branded him, marked him as her property. Insulting as it was demeaning, the anger helped to burn away any last trace of the nightmare. The world turned red, but he had been ready. He focused and did his best to let the rage flow through him and out. It was not easy. Part of him wanted to cling to that rage. The part that had first awakened in the shadowy underbelly of Coruscant was wide awake once more. Master Jazz had helped him cage that animal, but the cage was gone. Avi had torn the last of the bars away, and he had let her. That beast was awake now, awake and hungry. It took all his self-control not to give himself over to it completely. He wanted it all. Blood. Pain. Suffering. A shuddering breath escaped his lips. Focus, he thought, and with it the memory of his master's face helped him find a sense of composure. Focus. He did, and slowly, with effort, he became himself again. He shook his head, finally seeing what was around him. What he saw made him feel ill. Avi had not only left him here, she had left the bodies of the fallen survivors, the ones she had showed him aboard her ship. The stasis pods where they had been stored had been ripped open. The scavengers he had just run off had been looting their corpses. His eyes narrowed as he looked down at the dead creatures, those that had dared try and violate his friends and himself. The rage boiled up again. Part of him wished to give chase, to make sure the few that got away didn't get far. He cried out in fury, pounding the hard ground beneath him. Much better that than to go after living victims. He wanted to pursue, to inflict pain. No, he thought. No. No more, he swore to himself. No more. He would not live as a monster. He couldn't say how long he remained there, trying to regain his sense of calm. He feared that if he stood, he would give chase, and he wanted to give those that got away more and more time to be far away from him, far enough away to escape his raging emotions. He breathed, tried to remember what Master Jazz had taught him. He even used the burning sensation of the brand to focus, to gather his thoughts. He tried to recite the Jedi Code, but given everything that had happened these last few weeks, it brought no comfort. He no longer felt the strength of the code, not after what he had opened himself to. His passions had burned bright, and now they had burned away the last of his sense of Jedi control. He feared that he would never find that control again. Never. So he breathed in and out, and eventually it seemed to work. Slowly, he regained his wits, and came to his feet. The pain was not crippling at least. He looked around closer this time, to see if there was anything here that he could use. He found what looked like a Sith survival pack, one marked with the signs of the Empire. The scavengers had ripped it open, but abandoned it when they ran away. He stumbled over to it, digging through its contents. He found a small medical pack. The raiders had not been able to get it open. A small fingerprint scanner kept it sealed tight. He was not surprised to find that the scanner was key to him. Inside were dried rations and hydration tablets. He took 2 of the pills and devoured 3 of the ration bars. He had no idea how long he had been here. His face was sunburned, his lips dry and cracked. 3 days. The voice echoed through the force, the woman's voice again. You have been here for 3 days. He acknowledged her answer with a slight nod, but didn't move. He simply sat there, among the dead, letting the food and pills take effect. Slowly, he felt more like himself. His head finally cleared. He sobbed, but no tears fell. He had no idea what he was going to do next. Avi. What the hell would happen now? As he sat there, as the suns overhead burned down, he realized that he couldn't stay here. The scavengers would return, and even if they didn't, more likely would. Wherever he was, this was a harsh world. He looked up at the bodies of his friends. He couldn't leave them here, not like this. He staggered to his feet once more, looking around, seeing what he had to work with. Dried brush, some dead trees, rocks of various sizes. He nodded, his attention once again turning to the bodies. He couldn't save them, his friends, thanks to Avi, but he could honor them all, one last time. He took a deep breath and tried to focus on that. He could send Chris and the others off. It was what was right and proper. He got to work. The hot ground burned at his bare feet. He looked down at one of the scavengers. The man was about his size. His duster coat would fit, Finn figured. He used the force to flip the body over, stripping off the dead man's jacket. He shrugged painfully into it. The brand on his chest and the electrical burns on his chest hurt like fire. He gritted his teeth and dealt with it. He endured. Pain was something he was starting to get used to. He ran his fingers down the dirty leather coat. It would serve him better than simply being sunburned. He decided to check the other bodies. He would need weapons, food, and anything else they might have on them. Boots, the thought flitted through his mind. Boots would be nice. He hurried to the next body. Survival first, he thought, and then I honor the others. It is what they were all owed. It was the least they deserved. As the sun started to dip below the horizon, the flames rose high into the sky. The pyres turning dusk into the brightest day. Finn watched the flames lick at the bodies of his friends, his fellow survivors. He shook his head. Survivors no more. The flames consumed Anno. His cybernetics would be so much melted junk soon enough. It was a fate the Jedi Master didn't deserve. Chris, the others, they didn't deserve it either. To the left, another fire burned, the remains of the scavengers he had killed. He had stripped them of everything of value, but could not leave them to simply rot. They had only been trying to survive, as he was now. How could he not see them off as well? Finn limped away from the rising flames, though part of him longed for them as well. After his failure, after the fall of Survivor Squad, didn't he deserve to burn with the rest of the dead? No, he thought, I don't deserve rest. If anyone deserves to be picked apart by scavengers and carrion eaters, it is I. He shook his head. He deserved death, but was not quite ready to surrender to it, not yet. He had no idea where he was. He wanted to know that first. Then he could decide what came next. Then, he could decide where and when he wanted to die. He made for a lone swoop bike, abandoned by one of the beings he had killed. Its saddlebags filled with everything he could scavenge from his dead, and those that had tried to rob them. Among it was Chris' book of drawings. He was not sure why Avi had left it, but he could not bring himself to put it in the fire with the Colonel's body. He still hoped to get it back to Gilly if she still lived, or perhaps someone from the Republic, someone who would understand its value. It was part of history now. It deserved more than the flames. Far more than him, at least. He looked down at the beaten vehicle. It was better than nothing he supposed. It would serve. He swung his leg over it, making it groan. He turned the activator switch, making his engine cough to life. Thin shadowstone shot off across the arid plains, heading in the opposite direction from where the scavengers had fled. He still needed some time alone. His yellow eyes narrowed as he flew across the wastes. He still needed to think. He rode for hours. He was afraid to stop, afraid to face everything that had happened and what he had become. He focused on the roar of the engine and the wind in his face, anything not to think about the horrors that he had escaped when he fought his way back to consciousness. He only stopped when he came upon a rocky outcropping. There was shelter here, overhanging rocks and caves. As he brought his swoop to a stop, he reached out with the force, his shadowy touch finding nothing and no one living close by. He was grateful for that. The state of mind he was in, the shame and anger in his heart, he would be sorely tempted to simply destroy anyone or anything that might see his passing. He wanted to leave no trace, just in case the scavengers had friends who might seek retribution or desire what little he had left. He brought his swoop to a stop within a large cave, and from there, sought out a rocky outcropping only a few steps away. Here he would be able to rest. He dared not risk a fire at night, not wishing to draw any attention. Overhead, a large green moon appeared in the sky. By it, and the light of the stars, he could see well enough that he was not tripping over any minor outcropping. A small favor in a world that offered little, he thought. It was colder now that the sun had set. He limped over to a place where he would have a good vantage point of everything around him, just in case. He sighed and sank to the ground. Again the pain in his body washed over him, the adrenaline finally wearing off. He checked his supplies, all that he had been able to scavenge. He found a bottle of water from among the scavengers' things. He drank deep and let the water run down his chin. He again inspected his injuries. The brand on his chest didn't seem that bad. His arm and leg still pained him, but the braces at least offered him some movement. His attention was again drawn to Capistan's book. He flipped through the later pages, finding pictures of the people he had known and worked with. None of these survivors remained now. Those not killed on Tatooine had likely died by Avi's hands. He found himself focused on one of the pictures of her, or rather, the picture of the glamour that had hid her true face. True, he thought, still remembering seeing Avi smile with her mouth and glare down upon him with her eyes. Again the anger started to rise, and again, he tried to cut it off. He would not do this. He was still a Jedi. Wasn't he? He sighed and closed his eyes, tried to meditate on the Force, find the light, and use it to heal himself. Again, he found himself disappointed. The light was gone. It had been snuffed out. All that was left was shadows. He tried to go to the place within himself, the place where he and Avi had their connection. He thought he could use it to rise above his own pain and anger, and again, he was disappointed. The connection, their safe spot, was a quagmire of darkness. It was as dark as the void of space, and twice as cold, and in that place, he was not alone. He could hear it, voices, chanting rising above the pounding of his heart. He knew he should turn away, but he couldn't do it. He reached out, let him drift to those voices, and in the shadow, the words became clear. Avaris. 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 The chant echoed through his mind, and finally, he saw where he was. He stood upon a well-lit stage, the massive gathering hall built in Sith Imperial style. Giant crimson banners bearing the sigil of the Empire hung every few feet. Below the stage were hundreds of Sith soldiers, troopers, technicians, pilots, and officers, all chanting the name of his lover. Chanting the name of their master. They could not see him, none of them. He recognized some of them too. As they stood with the children, once again clad in her hood and cloak, Avi's apprentice looked down on the soldiers with a cold sense of calm and purpose. Bliss and Jeer fidgeted, and looked like they wanted to be anywhere but up on the stage. Abominus skulked behind them, her large wings curled about her. Holly was there too, the changeling once again clad in the uniform of an Imperial commander. Zen and Barrick were next to her. They stood at attention on the stage, stood in a place of honor. Taya stood with an older woman who looked just like her, and a dark-skinned man. Her family, he realized. Avi had returned to her people, and now they had the keys, and who knew what else to help them realize her goals. A blonde-haired human in the uniform of an Imperial general addressed the gathering, his voice hard and dripping with cruelty. His eyes were alight with fanatical excitement. Our enemies are all around us, the general's voice boomed, the cowardly invaders, the ineffectual Republic, and usurper Acina, and what remains of the ineffective Dark Council. The crowd's voices raised in anger. Death to the invaders. Death to the Republic. Destruction to the Council. The general nodded. We stand alone as the true bastion of Imperial might and courage. Our journey will be long and hard, but in the end, we will restore Imperial power and order to a troubled galaxy. For the Sith, someone in the crowd shouted, Hail Avaris! Only one understands the truth and has come up with a plan. Our liberator, our luminary, she who will bring an end to the Senate, the corrupt council, and will lay low the mongrel children of Vitiate. Again the crowd roared. They chanted Finn's lover's name. The general let them vent their rage, nodding, sharing in it. The great weapon that we shall build shall bring an ending to millennia of chaos. The Zakuul will be exterminated, the Senate brought low. The Jedi will be a thing of the past, a whisper in our grand history, and Sith Empire will finally understand what we all know. He is a bit long-winded, I know. Finn turned. Avi stood before him clad in her white robes, her hair done up stylishly, pinned by 2 gold needles. He frowned. A story from the histories came to him. Another Force wielder who preferred to wear only white. As a boy, he had learned tales of the Jedi Master Atris, she who had once sat on the Jedi Council and condemned the Jedi exile Mitra Sirik. She had dressed in all white, a sign of her piety and commitment to the Jedi way. Like Avi, Atris had been a liar and a traitor. She had hidden from the Sith of her time, hidden and given herself to the dark side. She had planned to introduce Sith doctrine into the Jedi way, to train a generation of Jedi to serve her needs. When Master Sirik had returned, she defeated the fallen master, condemned her to exile in her empty temple. If only it was that easy to deal with Avi, he thought. Alas, she was more powerful and had more resources than the misguided fallen Jedi master. Finn held her gaze. The general and crowd fell silent, frozen between the seconds. In that moment, Finn and Avi were the only things moving in the galaxy. She smiled at him. So you are awake? Good. She nodded to him in respect. I knew you were strong enough to endure the nightmares. The nightmares you left me in. She shrugged. I need you to understand why what is coming must happen. I can sense the blood on you, my love. You have already begun, haven't you? You see how horrible this wretched galaxy is. She paced before him, her hands hidden within the sleeves of her robes. I want you to understand why I needed the keys. Why this galaxy needs me. Your mouthpiece seems to think so, Finn said, motioning to the general, his face frozen madrant. Avaris laughed. Glask is a rabid dog. Buddy is my rabid dog. Every good tyrant needs one. Someone to bark and fire up the mob. Finn shook his head. Tyrant, he asked. She nodded. Avi, why? You never wanted to be a tyrant. You were a hero of your people. That is what you wanted. She sneered at that. Heroes, they don't really exist. They're symbols that the powerful use to inspire the mindless horde to obey. I played that role well for a time, for Mar, for Fear, and the Dark Council. She shook her head. In the end, heroes are resented by the rabble. They enjoy watching the rise of someone, but when they realize that they are incapable of following that path, they come to resent their champions. Then they live only to pull the heroes down. They revel in their fall. The pathetic unwashed masses. The Dark Lord snorted with disgust. I've moved beyond those expectations. Let them see me as a fallen hero. Let them say what they like. Vermin all of them, she spat, mundane wretches. Her anger and contempt shocked him. He had never seen this side of her. She met his gaze again, the force around her rippling with amusement. You thought yourself a hero, too, did you not? Now, the galaxy will see you as anything but. You will be hounded for your sins. You are alone, Finn, and soon, you will realize that only I will accept you. Only in my world will you be able to live without being hunted. He didn't want to acknowledge that, but he frowned. He knew how the Jedi Order responded when a member went rogue, or even was accused of going rogue. Avi smirked. You have no option, Finn, my dear fallen hero. She held out her arms. Come to me, you will find acceptance at my side, and warmth in my arms. You are mine, you always have been. He glared at her. If I come, it will not be for comfort, he snarled. Yet, even that was not enough to disturb her. She continued to smile. Your rage and aggression give you strength, good, though I can't imagine that you would be so quick to desire my death, especially considering the present you left within me. Finn blinked. Present. It took him a moment to wrap his mind around what she had said, but immediately he knew she was not trying to deceive him. They had never lied to each other, and now, that he was still, he could sense it. Her smile widened. Our passions have done something incredible, Finn. We have created the next Dark Lord of the Sith, the next ruler of this galaxy. She ran her fingers over her belly. Amazing. Such power growing in the shell. A future of stability and order. Your order, Finn said. Your rule. She sniffed. Who but I am strong enough or wise enough to give this rotten cesspit of a universe what it deserves, the ruler it needs. Finn's head spun. She truly was mad. Again, she must have picked up on his thoughts, his feelings. She scowled. Do not judge me, she hissed. Not until you have lived the life I've lived. He glared right back. You would condemn our child. Condemn. Our child will rule the galaxy. Does they agree with you on that? Avaris' brow furrowed. What does she have to do with this? Everything, Finn replied. She is your apprentice and heir, is she not? If you have no desire to create an enlightened Sith, then isn't she going to try to kill you when the time comes? That is her role, yes. And what will happen to our child when you die? Rain will have her first apprentice. She will train the next Lord Avaris. What if she has children of her own by that time, Avi? If she is ruling your empire, will she not want her own blood on the throne? Avaris paused, her brow furrowed in thought. Finn could almost hear the processors whirring in her mind. A life of cruelty and paranoia had made his lover cautious. Surely she would not. She smiled. Well done, my love. You schemed brilliantly, trying to turn me against Rain. He frowned. He wasn't trying to manipulate her. He was trying to get her to see sense. If Rain has children, she will need to be watched, but any offspring born of her are an opportunity, not a problem. If our children are of the opposite sex, they can be wed together. Rain's mental powers will enter the Avaris bloodline. If they are the same gender, I will foster a sense of brotherly or sisterly love. They will be raised together. That bond will keep them both in line. And if your apprentice disagrees? Avaris shrugged. Accidents happened, my dear. He nodded. Of course. You worry needlessly, she said dismissively. I'm more than capable of juggling the needs of family and empire, and would be more so with you at my side. As I said, Avaris, he growled, if I'm coming it is not for comfort. It will be for blood. Justice. She laughed. Justice. Revenge is such a better word. Even thinking about it makes me want to ask a question. Would you really kill the mother of your child, Finn? Would you give yourself over to the dark side just to satisfy your bloodlust? She sneered. In that moment, Jaz Darbin's failure will be complete. All the Jedi that look down their noses at your beloved master will be proven right. Cy Darbin will be proven right. Jaz Darbin trained a Sith, not a Jedi. He was a failure as a master, just as his student was a failure at being a Jedi. Finn's eyes narrowed. The yellow glow in his eyes intensified. How dare she speak of Master Jaz like that? She. He blinked. She would be right. He looked down at his feet. He was shaming his master. He was shaming himself. Avaris laughed. Oh, the horror, she cackled. Do you see it now, my love? The hopeless nature of this galaxy. You belong to me, and the dark side. You should just accept it. Then you will be able to lash out at those that look down upon you, and best of all, in time you will not care what they think. You will have power, and power washes the opinions of the weak and mundane away. He didn't answer. He had no words. Failure. Hopeless. Her expression turned thoughtful. You can't win this one, Finn. Even if I was to die, you would not live to revel in your victory. We were born together, live together, love together, and when the time comes, we will die together. I've foreseen it. Finn took a shuddering breath. In that moment, he saw it too. The two of them laying on a battlefield, having stabbed each other to death, lost in their final embrace. One death, one of many possible, but always, they met their end together. Perhaps they always would. He didn't fear death, but he did fear damnation. He would not enter the forest as he was now. He would be condemned to the madness beyond death. He knew that, and he feared it. You do not have to fear damnation. There are ways around it, I promise you, she said, picking up on his fears. I can show you, she offered, teach you how, and then, you will never need fear that fate again. I can make it so that we are together for eternity. Not even death will separate us. Again, he didn't answer her. What was left to say? Avaris sighed, basking in the sense of hopelessness that had ensnared him. She pulled up her white hood and removed her crimson featureless mask from her robes. The face of an empress. Perhaps her true face. Again she hid behind that mask, or stood revealed by it. Now, you must excuse me, my love. I need to address the mob and gird them for the battle to come. Time returned to normal, the roar of the crowd returned. The ranting of the Imperial General once again filled his ears. She stepped past her lover, leaving him in the shadows. The galaxy will know, the general shouted. Those that survive the destruction we will unleash will have no choice. All shall bow to Darth Avaryss. They will know that this was day one. The first day that marked the destruction of the galaxy and the ascension of the first galactic empire. The crowd went wild. The general nodded, breathing hard, a hint of a smile on his face. It was only then that Avaris stepped up to address her minions, stepped up, and into the real world, her face hidden behind her faceplate. Yet, Finn could sense her excitement, her reveling in the waves of anger and fervor in the crowd. He could only stand there and watch in horror. Avaris came to the podium as the general yielded his place to her. The crowd continued to cheer and roar, Avi needed to raise her hand, silencing them. They quieted quickly. Avaris leaned forward, her pleasure undeniable, her fingers brushing her belly protectively. She regarded her soldiers proudly, and only then did she speak. My chosen few, she said, sons and daughters of the Empire. Welcome to day one. The crowd roared. Hail Avaris. For the Sith. Death to the galaxy. Day one. Day one. All hail Avaris. Finn gasped, his heart raced. Once again, he sat on the rocky outcropping, sat on this unknown world. He shook his head, unable to escape the horror. Avi, he thought with a shiver. Avi, what have you done? Yet as he sat there, he found he had no answer. How could she do this? How? How could he have been so completely wrong about her? How? His world spun, and again he felt like he was falling. Part of him wished that he had died in his sleep, slain by the scavengers who tried to pick at the bones of his dead friends. Part of him wished that he had stepped into the fire with the colonel and the others. He wished he had had the courage to die. It would be a far better fate than this. Better than living with realization of how badly he had failed. How completely deceived he had been. Deception is part of the dark side. The voice cut through his despair, bringing him back to the here and the now. He looked up, surprised. The voice, it was no longer in his head. He heard it as clear as the wind whistling through the rocks of this world. As he watched, she appeared. He had only glimpsed her once before, but knew it was her. The Blue Woman. She appeared as a woman in her late 30s, early 40s, her form aglow in a bright blue aura. Her shoulder-length blonde hair was lightly dusted with gray. She wore an armored leather jacket, with a long red skirt, cut just so to give her legs freedom of movement. Long thigh-high boots completed the look. The woman shook her head. "Death to the galaxy," she said, looking upon Finn for the first time. "Your girlfriend is a real charmer." Finn's brow furrowed. "You are here," he said. "I've always been here," she said with a shrug. "I was there when you took your first breath, and your first step. I was there as you grew from childhood to the man you are today. I will always be with you. Yet, I was never strong enough to speak directly to you, not until this moment. The Force has finally granted me enough strength to not only whisper in your ear, but to appear to you." The woman sighed. "I wish that I had been able to do so sooner." Finn could sense her through the Force, even though she was not truly here. What he sensed surprised him. He sensed regret above all, but also a sense of love and protectiveness that was so intense that it shocked him. Love and protectiveness for him. The woman ran her hand through her blonde hair. "You should have had a life of your own, but I screwed that up too. Because of me, you were bonded to that girl. I should have tried harder, tried to reach out to Jazz sooner, but I didn't really understand how I'm no good at this. I never really was, of all the people to go into the Force intact, to remain as I am, or was, why me?" She sighed. "I guess I was always destined to be a screw-up." Finn's head spun. He didn't understand. She had caused his connection with Avi. How did that make sense? Despite his confusion, he still knew what he had to say. What the woman needed to hear. He still was a Jedi, or at least trying to be. The least he could do is offer some comfort. "Avi chose her own path," he said. "Whatever you did, or did not do, that doesn't change that. She made her choice." Finn looked down at his feet. "And so did I." The spirit was not so easily comforted. She frowned deeply. The girl had at least 2 strikes against since the day she was born, boy. Born into the Empire, connected to its darkest forces without even realizing how or why. The woman shook her head. Even when she was young, the darkness had already sunk its claws deep. It was just waiting until something set her off, unleashed that shadow. The ghost eyes turned cold, angry. It wasn't entirely her fault, but what she has become now. That is her choice, and you have a choice to make too. Finn shook his head. "I'm trapped here. Maybe here is where I should stay, where I won't hurt anyone else. You are not as trapped as you think you are. Check your pockets. Your Sith friends didn't, and that was a big mistake on their part." Finn did as he was told. What he found surprised him. 2 items remained on him, missed by Avi and her followers. The first was Jazz's lightsaber. The weapon felt cool and familiar in the young man's hands. The other item was a beacon call, the beacon call for Jazz's starship, the Nightfire. Finn looked upon it with a sense of relief. So, he wasn't trapped here after all, and with Jazz's ship, he would not need to kill to find transport of this rock. It seemed that Avi didn't know as much as she thought she did, or perhaps she had merely underestimated him. Regardless, he could leave, but that realization offered a very important question. Where would he go? And what would become of him now? He looked up at the Force ghost, this woman he didn't know, but somehow did. "Maybe I shouldn't leave," he said. "Maybe I shouldn't even try. I could make things worse for everyone. If I fail, if I fall, if I haven't fallen already." The woman gave him a sad smile. "The fact that you can still ask that question is proof that you are not lost, not yet." The woman's brow furrowed. "In life, I walked in darkness too. I endured so much. It nearly drove me mad, almost consumed me." "What happened?" he asked. "I found purpose. I served justice, true justice. Between that and the love and compassion of friends that would not leave my side, no matter how much I tried to drive them away, I found my place in the light again. The shadows never completely left me, but I was not a monster. I was a warrior, one touched by the darkness, but not ruled by it." The woman reached out, almost as if she wanted to touch his face, but then her hand fell away. She sighed. I wanted so much, and more for you, Merritt. I didn't want you to grow up and become like me. Finn's brow furrowed. Merritt. She gave him that sad smile again. That was the name I picked for you. I was never able to grant it to you. I was too weak when you came into this galaxy. Jazz and his Corellian friend took you. It was the Corellian who named you and brought you to the Shadowstone clan, and it was Jazz who, a few months later, came and took you to the Jedi Temple. Finn nodded. He digested what he was hearing. Merritt. It sounded right somehow, and perhaps a bit comforting. Merritt. Finn Shadowstone was a failure, a naive fool. He had been tricked into helping the Sith destroy Survivor Squad. He had let his passions manipulate him. He had thought he had wanted to die, to end, but perhaps only a name needed to end here. Finn Shadowstone, Avi's innocent pawn, would be left behind here. He would burn away with Chris Capiston and the rest of the fallen survivors. He could find a new place, a new purpose. Merritt, he thought. Why not? He looked at the woman again, seeing her with new eyes. She had named him, or wanted to. Who are you? He asked. Who are you really? She smirked at him, that sly smirk he saw in the mirror sometimes. I have her smile, he thought. You know who I am, she said. Probably, he said, but say the words, please. I need to hear them. The blue woman nodded. When I walked the physical world, I was called Myrix Phalanster, she said. Your master, my friend, and his wife called me Miri. My friends called me Miri. A tear ran down her face. He was shocked. Could a Force spirit cry? Well, since he was seeing it, he guessed they could. Myrix Phalanster sniffled. This was hard for her, but she managed to say the words he needed to hear. My friends called me Miri, she repeated. You can call me Mom. He nodded. Mom, he thought. My mother. He took a deep breath and let it out. The darkness was still a part of him, but he was no longer afraid. He would find a way back. He would find the light again, and if Avi tried to stop him, he would do what was needed. He would find his way back. He would save himself, and the child that was growing within Avi. He would not leave his child to the dark side. He would fight. He would find a way. He looked at his mother, feeling hope for first time since waking on this world. He smiled. I'm Merritt Fallenstar, he said, letting go of Finn and all his baggage. Hello, Merritt, his mother said. Now, what will you do, my son? He sat up straight, his Sith eyes glowing slightly. I need to get off this world, he said, triggering his master's beck and call. Summoning his master's ship. He remembered the tales he had heard from Jazz, the stories he told about Myrix Fallenstar. Myrix Fallenstar, his mother, had been bounty hunter, a mercenary, and sometimes bodyguard. She had fought for credits and the innocent. How many credits depended on her need and the justness of the cause that she served? He could do that. He needed resources and to think about how he was going to save his child. This was the start, but first thing was first. What will I do, Mom? He said, smirking back at her. I need to find a job. It is time to get to work.